It all kicks off with a frantic dash through the hospital corridors straight for the ER. Inside, a patient is in critical condition. The nurses notice his heartbeat and breathing have stopped. Just then, our protagonist jumps into action, starting chest compressions to try and bring the guy back. Thankfully, the medical team's efforts pay off, and the monitor shows the patient's heart is beating again. With the situation under control, 2 nurses breathe a sigh of relief, thanking Dr. Xiao for saving the day once more. One of them takes the chance to gossip about another doctor, calling him a total jerk. But our guy overhears them and chimes in, saying it's no big deal. His job is to save lives, even if it means running a little behind. He then lets the nurses know the patient is stable and that they can call him if they need anything at all. As the doctor walks away, the ladies sigh, commenting on how nice it would be to have a husband just like him. And with that, our guy finally heads to his apartment to get some rest after another long day at work. When he gets in, he glances at the clock and realizes he's super late, figuring his girlfriend, Lily, must be worried. The protagonist reflects that he's been working way too much and decides to take the weekend off to make it up to her. As he gets closer to the bathroom, he hears his girlfriend's voice saying she missed someone. Our guy cracks the door open just a tiny bit to peek inside, but what he sees is anything but good. With a look of pure shock, he wonders how this could even be possible, realizing he's been getting played this whole time. Standing frozen in front of the bathroom, he watches the scene unfold through the steam. Heartbroken and filled with rage, our MC's fist clenches tightly. In his mind, our guy wonders who that other man could be. But then he thinks, what's the point? It's better to leave them with a shred of dignity. Inside, the girl rushes her lover, telling him to hurry up and leave before Xiao gets home. The man then asks if she doesn't find the whole risky situation a bit more thrilling. Hearing the guy's voice, our protagonist realizes he knows him from somewhere. His girlfriend then asks if her lover has talked to his dad about her promotion. He confirms he'll help, and our guy finally recognizes the voice of Go Xiaokong. In that moment, he understands that Lily traded him for this dude, all for a promotion. The young man keeps listening and figures out they're talking about his job. Gu brags that our protagonist doesn't stand a chance because his dad calls all the shots there. The rival even mocks our MC, calling him a loser for not taking things further with her. He keeps provoking her, asking if she feels even a little bit sorry for her boyfriend. With contempt, she replies that he's just a bastard and that she couldn't care less about him. Hearing that, our protagonist is completely floored. The word bastard hits him right where it hurts. After all, his own mother was kicked out of her family for that very reason, and it's a weight he's carried his whole life. In the bathroom, the curious rival asks why, and the girl reveals that our MC doesn't even know who his own father is. The lover then scoffs at the situation and makes a tasteless joke about our protagonist's mother. But that was the last straw. Our guy storms at the bathroom and lands a solid punch right in his rival's face. Startled by the intrusion, the rival asks who it is. But our MC doesn't say a word, just glares at the two of them with a look of pure fury. The lover finally recognizes him, and the ex-girlfriend panics, realizing he's found out everything. Heartbroken, the protagonist says he never imagined Zhang Lily was this kind of person. The girl covers herself with a towel and retorts that she must have been blind to have fallen for a loser like him. She goes on complaining that in over 2 years of dating, all she ever got was an old bracelet. She rips off the bracelet and says from now on, they'll go their separate ways. Our guy has a flashback to when she used to be happy and wonders how she could have changed so much. He then looks down at the bracelet she threw on the floor, reflecting on the end of their relationship. The rival taunts him, asking if he wants to stick around and watch the show. With that, our MC's patience runs out, and he decks the rival with another punch. The lover complains about being hit again, and we see the punch knocked one of his teeth out. But the guy refuses to back down, yelling that he's not afraid of him as the girl watches it all go down. The rival lunges forward and lands a punch that sends our MC crashing to the floor. Without a shred of pity, the aggressor stomps hard on the hand of our guy, who is down and defenseless. With a cruel smirk, the aggressor grinds his foot into our MC's hand and says he doesn't know what's good for him. After that, the rival tells the girl it's time to go, leaving him on the floor like a total loser. As he lies on the ground with his injured hand, a mysterious voice suddenly comes from the bracelet. The voice introduces itself as an ancestor of the Ye family, revealing that he left his consciousness within the jewelry. The spirit laments seeing his descendants in such despair and decides to teach the young man everything he knows. But he warns that if our guy doesn't follow his lessons, his end will be a tragic and lonely one. Suddenly, a golden energy dragon shoots out of the object and slams right into our protagonist's chest. He feels an immense pain and is completely stunned by the vision. As soon as the vision ends, the young man finds himself back in the bathroom, with no clue what just happened. Angry, he remembers the betrayal and curses the despicable couple for everything they did. Just then, the young man gets up and notices a strange blue aura coming from his hands. He looks at his hand, which was injured before, and wonders what on earth is going on. Still confused, our MC starts to wonder if that dream he had was real or just a hallucination. Then, a flood of knowledge about ancient talismans and charms rushes into the protagonist's mind. He learns about various types of spells, including talismans for good luck, bad luck, and even movement. The knowledge keeps coming, and he learns about 108 types of spells, including exorcism and celestial vision. Completely shocked by all of this, the protagonist wonders what the heck is happening. Looking at his hands, the protagonist is stunned by the blue energy radiating from them. Suddenly, his cell phone starts ringing, and the caller ID shows the name Miss Bai Bing. Still on the floor, he answers the call and asks if Director Bai wanted to speak with him. On the other end of the line, a woman who sounds furious orders the young man to meet her at the hospital first thing in the morning. Without questioning it, our guy simply agrees to the order and hangs up. He then reflects on what could have happened, since the director had never been that angry with anyone before. The next morning, the protagonist heads to the hospital to meet his boss, as planned. As soon as he enters the hallway, a few people are surprised to see an elegant woman walk by. Other patients recognize her, commenting that she's the famous Professor Bai who operated on their family members. This is Bai Bing, the youngest chief surgeon in Jiangzhou, with an impressive and mysterious resume. Meanwhile, our MC walks through the halls, and some doctors stare him down with contempt. The other doctors whisper among themselves, wondering how he still has the nerve to show his face around there. Ignoring all the nasty comments, the young man finally arrives at the director's office door. He takes a deep breath, looking pretty nervous about what's about to happen. Mustering his courage, the young man knocks on the door and announces himself to Director Bai. A voice tells him to come in, and our guy stands frozen in front of the director's desk. With a serious look, the woman asks if our MC knows why she called him in. Visibly nervous, the young man replies that he has no idea what's going on. But the director gives him a cold stare and says she always held him in high regard. The woman gets angry and throws a stack of papers at him, saying he's deeply disappointed her. On the papers are two identical medical reports, but one is signed by him and the other by Guo Xiaokong. In complete shock, the protagonist wonders how his thesis and Guo Xiaokong's could be exactly the same. His boss accuses him of plagiarism, and the young man drops to his knees, trying to explain that he spent the entire month working on that thesis. He then says his ex-girlfriend, Zhang Lily, was on the night shift with him and can prove his innocence. However, the woman doesn't believe a word of it and reveals that Zhang Lily testified against him. Devastated, the young man can't believe his ex-girlfriend betrayed him yet again in such a way. The director then informs him that, effective immediately, he is fired from the clinic and will be transferred. In shock, our MC wonders how he can ever be a doctor if he's been demoted to a nursing position. Completely defeated, the young man leaves the office and walks past the same doctors who looked down on him before. With a look full of hatred, he swears he will make that traitorous couple pay for everything they've done. Still shaken by the news, the protagonist waits for the elevator to leave the floor. Just then, the metal doors begin to slowly open right in front of him. To his surprise, inside are none other than his ex-girlfriend and her lover, wrapped in an embrace. With his blood boiling, our MC thinks that you really do run into your enemies in the worst possible places. The rival taunts him, saying what a coincidence it is to run into him, and our guy curses his bad luck. The antagonist says he's lucky Bai Bing is looking out for him. Our protagonist is confused, not understanding why he would bring up Director Bai. Then the traitor feigns surprise and asks if the two of them aren't involved somehow. To provoke him, the guy asks an inappropriate question about the director, and our MC gets ticked off. At that, the ex-girlfriend chimes in that she got rid of the best intern so he could shine. The villain continues to mock him, saying he can do whatever he wants to our MC at the hospital. The young man then realizes the director is actually trying to help him and that he can't leave the hospital. The lover asks why she ever dated such trash, and the girl says it's because she didn't know him back then. Chagrined, the rival invites the girl to a hotel, and she acts all shy. He keeps up the taunts while our MC just watches the scene in complete silence. But on the inside, the young man is absolutely furious, clenching his fists tightly. He then remembers the elevator has cameras and knows he can't do anything right now. Our guy calms himself down, deciding he can hold on a little longer. After all, revenge is a dish best served cold. Finally, the elevator reaches the first floor, and a chime echoes through the area. As soon as the doors open, the rival stops him from leaving, grabbing him by the shoulder. With a look of contempt, our MC asks what else he could possibly want from him. The antagonist just laughs and says he's not going to make things easy for the guy at the hospital. At that moment, the traitor starts shouting to get everyone's attention in the lobby. He then spins a made-up story about plagiarism and assault to ruin our MC's reputation. With that, the people around them start whispering and judging the young man without knowing the truth. Even the other employees are shocked, saying how scary it is to have a colleague like that. Our MC grinds his teeth in anger but continues to hold back to avoid making things worse. But the villain isn't done yet and asks for everyone's attention for one more thing. The antagonist then reveals that the young man was raised by a single mother, humiliating him in front of everyone. This final insult seems to have hit a nerve, and our guy's anger flares. The people around them are shocked by the revelation about the protagonist's family. A few guys start mocking him, questioning how someone like that could ever become a doctor. Unable to take any more humiliation, our MC starts running, trying to get away from all the stares. He then realizes that if he leaves like this, his career as a doctor will be over for good. Suddenly, our guy stops running, and a blue aura surrounds him as an idea sparks in his mind. While the rival mocks him for running away, our MC decides it's time to try something new. With a furious gaze, the protagonist asks if the rival isn't afraid of the consequences of his lies. But the antagonist just scoffs, saying he's not afraid of anything, because he's just telling the truth. With a subtle smile on his lips, our MC prepares to make his move. Then out of nowhere, the antagonist collapses, spitting up a mouthful of red liquid. The villain is down on the ground as everyone wonders what just happened to him. Something belonging to the villain shatters on the floor with a loud crash. Lying on the ground, the antagonist curses in pain, his face covered in cuts. Just then, the guy cries out in pain and his ex-girlfriend watches, completely shocked by the situation. With that, the girl rushes to help him and asks if he's okay, but he just responds sarcastically. The protagonist then walks over and asks if the rival doesn't think this is karma. Hearing this, the girl is completely stunned by our MC's words. Turning to the young man, the girl accuses him of planning the whole thing, and he simply asks if she has any proof. The traitor then asks the girl to help him get to the emergency room, and she agrees. As she helps him, the ex-girlfriend tells the guy to hang in there because she's going to help him. A nurse passing by trips and screams. The tray she was carrying goes flying, and vials of medicine shatter in mid-air. The liquid splashes directly onto the rival's wounds, and he screams in pain from the sting. The ex-girlfriend is shocked by what's happening. The nurse apologizes profusely while the girl scolds her for not paying attention. The girl yells for other nurses to bring a wheelchair to move the injured man. The girl gets the rival into the wheelchair and says she'll take him to the ER, but when they try to get into the elevator, it gets stuck. With that, the antagonist screams in pain as the elevator door crushes his body. The ex-girlfriend tries to pull him out, but he complains that she's hurting him. Just then, security guards arrive and try to pry the door open while the villain screams. Suddenly, the hospital lights go out, plunging everything into complete darkness. Trapped in the dark, the traitor panics and starts screaming desperately for help. The people around them start to wonder if this really is some kind of divine punishment. Meanwhile, our protagonist just watches the scene unfold with a cold, calculating look. The story then flashes back 1 hour, showing an ancient book of spells. We see our guy holding a talisman and saying he's going to test it on someone. The object is revealed to be a powerful bad luck talisman shrouded in a blue aura. Back in the present, the young man thinks that evil always gets punished, and that the item worked like a charm. It's then revealed that the talisman is in our MC's pocket. A satisfied smile, our MC watches the chaos he himself created. The scene then shifts to the garden at the hospital entrance, where there's a large pond. Protagonist is walking by, thinking he can't go home yet and worry his mother. But suddenly, he hears a scream and realizes someone just fell into the water. A child is flailing in the pond, and the people around are screaming desperately for help. The little boy starts to go under, and someone yells for them to call for an ambulance. Without a second thought, our MC sprints towards the pond to save the boy. He then dives into the water. Focused on the rescue, our guy swims with all his might to reach the boy in danger. He manages to grab the kid and starts swimming back to the edge of the pond. Once on solid ground, the young man asks where the child's parents are, and someone shouts that help is on the way. But the little boy is unconscious and isn't moving, making everyone around them extremely worried. Realizing how serious it is, our MC doesn't waste a second and starts CPR to revive him. The boy begins to react, his eyes fluttering open. After a few tense moments, the boy finally coughs, spitting out all the water he swallowed. Disoriented, the boy asks who he is, and our MC tells him he saved him and asks about his family. Suddenly, an old man and his bodyguard come running, calling the boy's name, who shouts, "Grandpa." The elderly man hugs his grandson, worried sick, and asks if he's hurt, but the boy just apologizes for the accident. The little boy then points to our protagonist and says he was the one who pulled him out of the water. Our guy then suggests they take the boy to the hospital and warns the grandfather to be more careful. The bodyguard doesn't like his tone and asks if the young man knows who he's talking to, but the old man scolds him. The gentleman then asks his assistant to take his grandson to the car, as they really need to get to the hospital. Turning to our MC, the old man thanks him and admits he's right, promising to be more careful. Taking a closer look, the young man notices the old man's gold chain, indicating he's someone wealthy. His clothes also look to be high quality, confirming that this elderly man is no ordinary person. With this realization, our MC gets a little nervous as he understands the situation he's stumbled into. But the gentleman thanks him again and asks for his name so he can repay him, and the young man introduces himself, saying it was nothing. As a token of gratitude, the old man offers him a card with $500,000, but the protagonist refuses it. They stare at each other for a moment, and the old man, changing the subject, our MC asks if the gentleman often feels some kind of discomfort. The old man is surprised by the question and denies it, saying he gets regular check-ups and is perfectly healthy. Our MC then says he senses something different about him but adds that he could be mistaken and tells him to pay it no mind. With that, the young man says goodbye and reminds the gentleman to take his grandson to the doctor for a check-up. Watching the young man walk away, the old man is left pondering what just happened. He remembers that he has consulted the best doctors in the world over the years to manage his health. But despite all their efforts, none of them could ever diagnose the serious illness he had. He then wonders if heaven is giving a dying man a chance to live a few more years. Now in the car, the gentleman calls his bodyguard, who asks what the Dragon King wishes to do. The Dragon King then orders his assistant to find out everything about the young man, saying he wants to know every single detail of his life. Meanwhile, our MC has no idea that he has just caught the attention of someone very influential. Arriving home, our MC calls out to his mom, letting her know he's back. Just then, his mother appears with a plate of food and asks why he's all wet. She dries his hair and guesses that he fell in the lake, which surprises the young man. But the food smells amazing, and his mother insists that he tell her what happened. So, he explains that he saved a child from drowning, that the boy's grandfather showed up right after. His mother says he did the right thing but asks him to be careful because his life is precious to her. She emphasizes that he is her whole world and that she doesn't want anything to happen to her son. The young man replies that she's important too and jokes that he'll get sick if she keeps feeding him like that. The lady smiles at the joke, and we learn her name is Qian Jinglin and that she came from a large family. Our MC remembers finding old photos that prove it, but his mother never talks about the past. He thinks that even though they were a wealthy family, they were cast out and never had contact again. Because of this, he carries the image of his mother suffering, as she was forced to leave with him as just a baby. But the protagonist hates the man who abandoned them even more, the one he has never even met. He considers his father an irresponsible man who doesn't deserve to live for leaving his mother all alone. The young man sighs, remembering that whenever he asked about his father, his mother would just become quiet and sad. He decides to drop it, knowing it would only make his mother sad to bring up those memories. His mother then asks him to call Lily for dinner because she wants to talk to the girl. She says she wants to see her grandkids soon, and this visibly upsets the protagonist. The young man says his goodbyes, claiming he's tired, and his mother agrees he needs some rest. Then goes into his room and closes the door. Lying in bed, he thinks that he needs to talk to his mother about something important. The thing is, he has no idea how to tell his mother that his girlfriend cheated on him. Tired of thinking about it, he tosses and turns in bed, unable to sleep. Suddenly, he remembers something important that could change everything. He then recalls the complete collection of Maoshan talismans that his family possesses. But he remembers that the collection isn't just limited to talismans. The Ye family also possesses numerous secrets of medical and martial arts, among other techniques. Since he can't sleep, he decides to do something useful with this knowledge. And so, the night passes quickly and a new day begins. The young man was up all night and is amazed by his family's treasures. He then checks the clock, which reads 8:10, and realizes he needs to get to work. In a hurry, the young man says goodbye to his mother, who tells him to take it easy and that there's no need to rush. Her son leave, the lady smiles and thinks how incredible that boy's energy is. Arriving at the hospital, we see a sign for the nurses' station. There, our MC finds a few nurses, and one of them looks pretty shaken up. A colleague explains that the patient in room 301 is difficult and has already sent 4 people away. Just then, the head nurse shows up and assigns our MC to take care of this complicated patient. With little choice, our guy agrees and heads to the woman's room. To his surprise, the patient is a very beautiful woman who invites him in. The protagonist is left speechless and blushing at the beauty of the woman in front of him. She then questions the hospital for sending a male nurse to take care of her. He tries to be professional, shows his badge, and introduces himself as Ye Xiao. The patient repeats his name and, with a smile, pulls him closer to her on the bed. The woman asks what he thought when he first saw her, and our guy stammers that he found her beautiful. She leans close to his ear and asks which part of her he liked the most. She slowly brings her face closer to our MC's, then her body clearly setting a mood. Our guy gets totally flustered and gently tries to push her away to maintain his composure. The woman laughs and says he's shy and wasn't very honest with his answer. Our MC tries to keep his cool and informs her that he's going to examine her leg. But she teases him, saying she's shy, that it's weird to have someone touching her leg. Ignoring the provocation, the young man kneels down to begin the procedure. Carefully, he begins to examine the patient's injured leg. As he removes the bandage, he sees a large scar, and she complains of intense pain. At that moment, the young man asks how she got that injury. The woman explains it was a car accident that broke her bones. Analyzing the wound, our MC realizes she doesn't need another surgery. Just then, a doctor enters the room, and the patient says she doesn't want to be left with scars. She says she was in a bad mood, but the nurse has cheered her up a lot. The woman asks the doctor about the scar, and he says it will take months to treat. Woman is clearly disappointed and asks if there's any other solution. The protagonist then interjects, saying he can heal her in a week. The doctor becomes furious and yells at the young man, calling him a quack. The doctor's assistant also gets angry, saying a nurse isn't allowed to give diagnosis. But the patient cuts off the argument with a serious look. The doctor tries to convince her not to listen to the young man, calling it superstition, but she tells the doctor to shut up. The woman then gets up and challenges him, asking if he can really remove her scars in a month. The protagonist explains it to her, and she's confused by the mention of spells, questioning what he just said. Our guy then explains that they are secret techniques with magical powers, not superstition. She asks if he can really remove her scars, and the young man says it will take about 5 minutes. The doctor and his assistant don't believe him and question why he's just a nurse if he's so powerful. The protagonist gets awkward and explains that he was framed by a guy named Go Shokong. The doctor tells him to stop making excuses, but the patient interrupts him and tells the doctor to be quiet. She complains that hospitals are useless, and since they can't help her, they shouldn't get in the way of someone who can. That the woman hires the young man as her personal nurse and tells him to get started. Our MC thanks her for her trust and says he will begin the procedure immediately. He then makes a hand sign, and a golden energy begins to swirl around him. Our guy focuses all this power into his hands, forming a brilliant sphere of light. With a swift motion, he places a paper talisman over her wound. The doctor watches the whole thing with a smirk, saying the protagonist is a good actor. The assistant agrees, suggesting he should try his luck as an actor instead of a nurse. But our MC simply ignores them both, remaining completely focused on his spell. Suddenly, the talisman on her leg begins to glow with a very bright light. The patient is shocked to see that her scar has simply vanished. The doctor stares at her leg in disbelief, unable to process what he's seeing. The woman's skin is flawless, and the doctor wonders how it could be possible. Desperate, the doctor grabs her leg and shouts that it's impossible to recover that quickly. But the patient is furious and kicks him away, calling him a creepy old man. With a cold glare, the woman says that if he has nothing else to do there, he can leave. The doctor gets embarrassed and tries to apologize, saying it wasn't his intention. The woman then asks our MC to teach her some beauty tricks, and he agrees. Outside the hospital, there's quite a crowd. The doctor walks in silence, looking very thoughtful about what just happened. His assistant then asks if the protagonist is really that powerful and how he did it. Annoyed, the doctor yells at his assistant and tells him to shut his mouth right now. The doctor then tells the young man to go back to the office because he needs to be alone. Meanwhile, we see the patient's room, now empty and quiet. The patient remains silent for a moment, just staring at the young man with a thoughtful expression. Noticing his gaze, the woman questions him about it, and he asks if there's something on his face. With a smile, she gets very close to him, and our MC stammers that the swelling is normal. She then lets out a soft laugh, amused by the protagonist's shy reaction. Climbing onto the bed, the woman asks another bold question, and our guy says she's being very forward. The woman continues to tease him, asking if he can't control himself because she's too beautiful. With that, the protagonist turns completely red, not knowing how to respond to the girl. She then laughs and says the young man is good at making others happy, and that she'll trust him. The patient then formally introduces herself as Lin Jingji and extends her hand to him. So funny face, thinking the nickname, Fairy Lin, suits her much better. Just then, the woman asks what he said, but the young man plays it off, saying it was nothing. But she smiles and says she heard him and that everyone calls her Fairy Lin, behind her back. The protagonist then says calling her a fairy isn't quite accurate, leaving her confused. He explains with a smile that she's actually even more beautiful than a fairy. The woman is charmed and says he's skilled and sweet, so she'll grant him one wish. Our guy thinks for a moment and asks to be her nurse for a month, as he might have to leave. Lin Jingji doesn't understand, saying it's a waste and that she could introduce him to some rich ladies. But the young man explains that his goal isn't money, but to save lives as a real doctor. The woman stares at him in silence, seeming impressed by the protagonist's determination. With a gentle smile, she closes her eyes and says she finally understands what he wants. She says she likes men with dreams and from now on he is her exclusive nurse. Our MC is surprised but very happy and thanks Miss Lin for the opportunity. He then asks if they need a contract, and she finds the young man very interesting. After the protagonist leaves, the woman is alone in her room and picks up her phone. She then calls someone and asks them to investigate everything about a nurse named Xiao. Moments later, the patient receives a file on her phone with all the information about him. Reading the file, she discovers that our MC has a history of plagiarism and betrayal. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and a man in a lab coat greets her with a smile. With a serious expression, the woman asks who he is and what he's doing there. The man introduces himself as Dr. Go Xiaokong from the surgery department. He then starts slandering our MC, claiming he plagiarized his thesis and is a bad person. Just then, the protagonist returns and Go tells Lin to fire him because he can't be trusted. The woman smiles and repeats to the young man everything the doctor said about him being lazy. Our guy gets furious and tells Gu not to push his luck, but the rival just glares back. The doctor then turns to the patient and asks her to consider his suggestion carefully. But the woman asks what happens if she insists on hiring our MC as her nurse. The doctor threatens her, saying the hospital won't be responsible for any problems. Annoyed, the woman asks if he's threatening her and if the hospital knows about this. The woman then turns to the protagonist, looking very irritated with the situation. She begins to explain the natural law of the world and how animals adapt to survive. But he asserts that he's not the type to move on, and that he'd rather change the world around him. The patient continues, saying that if he's too nice, people will take advantage of him. Our MC responds with a serious look, saying he understands perfectly what she means. She then asks how long he's going to let others control and use him. The protagonist glares at the doctor, who gets startled by his sudden stare and asks what he wants. Go becomes furious with our guy's attitude and curses at him, his eyes filled with rage. Without a second thought, our MC lands a punch right in the rival doctor's face. Commotion in the patient's room continues. The doctor holds his face in shock, asking how the young man had the nerve to hit him. But our guy responds with a serious look that he's had enough and won't tolerate it anymore. Angrily, the rival lunges forward, shouting that the protagonist is asking for a tragic end. Suddenly, a firm, calm voice orders them both to stop fighting immediately. It was the patient, scolding them for having the audacity to fight in her room. The doctor then turns to her with a serious look and questions who exactly she is. She reveals she's someone the vice president's son can't afford to provoke and tells him to get out. At that moment, Go gets scared, thinking that maybe he shouldn't have acted that way. Before leaving, he glares at the protagonist and threatens him, saying this isn't over. After the doctor leaves, our MC turns and thanks Miss Lin for her help. The woman then smiles and asks how it felt to fight back, and if it was a good feeling for him. With a grin, the young man confirms it felt great, and the two seem to be amused by the situation. The protagonist then asks if she thinks he's a coward for having put up with everything in silence. But the patient looks at him and says he's not a coward, but rather a very kind person. The woman says she understands his mindset, being new to society and having no connections. But she states with a serious look that she doesn't admire that kind of attitude at all. The protagonist remains silent, looking surprised by the patient's harsh words. She then uses a chess metaphor, saying that if he's always the nice guy, the predators will take over. With a smile, the woman tells him not to underestimate her, as she's lived a lot longer than he has. The woman explains that the powerful always fear those who have nothing to lose. She continues, saying that the more status and money people have, the more fear they feel. Furthermore, she reveals that the protagonist isn't completely without someone to support him. The protagonist is confused by the woman's statement, not understanding what she means. She then places a hand on his head and says that from now on, she will be his protector. Our guy touches his ankle while being comforted. With tears in his eyes, our guy thanks Miss Lin for the unexpected support. The patient lets out a little laugh, as if finding the young man's reaction a bit funny. She holds his chin and says a simple thank you isn't enough and teases him. The protagonist turns completely red, speechless from the woman's provocation. Laughing, the woman says it was just a joke and asks him to hand her the contract. With that, the patient signs the contract, and our MC is relieved to have kept his job. The woman then asks if the protagonist can heal her leg, and he explains that the process is slow. Seeing her boredom, our MC offers to take her for a walk, and she gets very excited. Just then, the young man appears with a wheelchair, and the woman praises him for being so thoughtful. Suddenly, she hugs him and says she's going to choose him as her boyfriend, leaving our MC in shock. The woman then sits in the wheelchair, all excited, and they finally head out for their walk. Meanwhile, the protagonist's mother shows up, saying her son and his girlfriend must be busy. She then reveals a special lunchbox with a soup she lovingly prepared for them. Suddenly, the woman freezes in shock at seeing something unexpected and calls out Lily's name. She then sees her son's ex with his rival Dr. Go. Our MC's mother then confronts the girl, who reveals she broke up with him over plagiarism. Utterly shocked, the woman can't believe her son would plagiarize someone's work. The doctor then scoffs, saying the young man stole his thesis and even assaulted him at the hospital. Wide-eyed, the poor lady processes the accusations of plagiarism and being fired. Desperate, she approaches the doctor and pleads with him, insisting it must all be a misunderstanding. But the rival gets annoyed with her persistence and shoves the woman away forcefully. In that moment, the lunchbox she was holding so lovingly falls and shatters on the ground. The doctor mocks the spilled soup and humiliates the protagonist's mother, telling her to clean it up. Even so, the woman collects herself and continues to beg for forgiveness on her son's behalf. No other choice, the lady falls to her knees, thinking she has to do this for her boy. Kneeling on the floor, she begs Dr. Go to give her dear son another chance. With an arrogant smirk, the rival says he's not going to fall for the lady's emotional blackmail. Just then, the protagonist appears and cries out in shock upon seeing his mother in that position. The young man rushes to help her up, telling her to stop humiliating herself. With a look full of hatred, our MC glares at the doctor who humiliated his family. He then lunges forward furiously and grabs the rival's neck with all his strength. Desperate, his mother tries to separate them, saying it was her fault for kneeling. Even while being choked, the rival still taunts our MC, daring him to finish him off. The protagonist responds with a cold glare, asking if he really thinks he doesn't have the guts. He then tightens his grip on the doctor's neck, and his mother screams for him to let go. The woman desperately asks if her son can still hear her or if he's going to ignore her completely. Our guy finally calms down. The rival accuses our guy of trying to finish him off in public. The lady then hurries to apologize, taking all the blame for the commotion. She offers the doctor money to go to the ER and cover any expenses. But the rival is offended and slaps her hand away, yelling if she thinks he's some kind of beggar. The doctor shouts that not even for 1,000,000 yuan would he forgive the young man and that apologizing is useless. Full of hatred, our MC glares at his rival, unable to control himself any longer. In that moment, the protagonist lunges forward and lands a powerful punch right in the doctor's stomach. With that, the rival collapses to the ground in immense pain, not understanding what just happened. But our guy isn't finished yet and grabs the doctor's collar to lift him up again. He then hoists the rival into the air with ease. Our MC's ex-girlfriend watches from a distance, paralyzed by the violent scene. The protagonist's mother is also in shock, her hands over her mouth, unable to believe it. With his eyes glowing red, our MC warns that he will make the doctor pay for what he did. The rival then taunts our guy, saying the place is full of cameras and that he's finished. Desperate, the young man's mother screams his name, begging him to stop immediately. Meanwhile, the ex-girlfriend calls the security department, asking for help quickly. But the protagonist seems unfazed by the threats, maintaining a cold and determined gaze. He then simply throws the doctor to the ground with impressive force, without hesitation. Mercilessly, our guy stomps hard on the rival's hand, who screams in pain from the impact. The protagonist says he put up with the betrayal and the plagiarism, while the other man begs to be let go. Pulling him up by the collar, our MC says he dared to hurt his mother, and that's something he will not forgive. With that, Dr. Gu falls to the ground again, coughing uncontrollably from his injuries. The protagonist then approaches and, with a serious look, demands that he apologize to his mother. Even on the ground and injured, the rival refuses to apologize to the lady and tells him to keep dreaming. At that moment, the young man's fury explodes and he warns that the doctor will pay with his life. He lunges forward once more, vowing to fight until his enemy admits his mistake. RMC then lands a devastating blow that makes the rival spit from the sheer pain. But suddenly a woman appears and yells for the protagonist to stop, surprising the young man. The woman warns the young man, saying that's enough and that he'll go to jail if he continues. The ex-girlfriend then runs to the director and begs for help to save her new boyfriend. With authority, the woman orders our MC to let go of Dr. Go, who just stares at her in silence. She then tries to appeal to the young man, questioning if it's worth being arrested for someone like that. His mentor's words make the protagonist look at his mother, who is crying sadly. With a calm gesture, the director places a hand on the young man's shoulder and asks him to release his rival. Influenced by her words, our guy finally lets go of the doctor, who falls back, drained of strength. Our MC then hugs his mother and warns that if the rival ever dares to mess with her again, he'll make him disappear. But the doctor gets up and accuses the protagonist of trying to take him out in front of everyone. His boss then glares at him and asks if he really wrote that thesis, telling him not to play her for a fool. Firmly, the director ends the argument and forbids anyone from speaking about the matter. She then turns to the protagonist and asks him to go to her office and wait for her. In the mentor's office, she looks at the young man and his mother and says she doesn't know what to say to him. Lady then apologizes to the boss, taking the blame for coming to the hospital to look for him. But our guy warns his mentor that the rival's family is very influential at the hospital. Our guy tells his mentor not to worry, because he's not afraid of the consequences. At that moment, the boss tries to speak, but the young man's mother interrupts, thanking her for everything. The lady then says that these are things her son needs to face on his own, and that the director has already done enough. Suddenly, the office door is kicked open violently as someone shouts the director's name. Everyone in the room turns, startled by the sudden intrusion and the noise. Then a huge, intimidating man enters, and we find out he's the rival's father and the vice president. Angrily, the man yells that our MC assaulted his son and that the director didn't even want to call the police. He then approaches the boss and asks if she thinks she owns the hospital. The director defends our MC, saying the rival was also in the wrong and asks that our guy not be punished. But the vice president doesn't want to hear excuses and says a violent plagiarist can't be a doctor. Hearing that, the director is left speechless, looking very worried about the protagonist's situation. The man continues his lecture, pointing at our MC and saying he's not even worthy of being called human. Completely losing it, the rival's father yells for security to get the protagonist out of there right now. At that moment, our MC steps in front of the director and tells her to step aside and leave it to him. With a confident smile, our guy asks his boss to trust him, because he can handle this all by himself. The director is surprised by his attitude and looks at him, not understanding what he's about to do. Seeing the security guards approaching, our guy challenges them, telling them all to come at him at once. Suddenly, a luxury car pulls up in front of the hospital, and several men get out. The vehicle screeches to a halt in front of the hospital. An elegantly dressed man with polished shoes steps out of the car, clearly someone important. This man is introduced as Xiao Yun, the personal guard of the powerful Dragon King. Right at the entrance, a nurse recognizes him and offers to call the vice director immediately. However, he ignores her as she makes the call to the vice director. Back in the office, we see that all the security guards have been easily defeated by the protagonist. Our MC then turns to his mother and says that, unfortunately, he won't be able to stay at the hospital any longer. The young man then approaches his mother and tells her they should go home together. At exact moment, the office door opens, revealing the arrival of someone unexpected. The man who just arrived stares at our MC, who wonders who he could be. The newcomer addresses the protagonist and asks if they can talk for a moment. Our guy explains that unfortunately he can't, as he's been fired and is taking his mother home. The bodyguard remains silent for a second, seeming to analyze the situation. Soon, questions arise about who this person with such a sharp gaze is. The vice director finally arrives and apologizes to the visitor, blaming the protagonist for the mess. The bodyguard ignores the vice director and coldly asks if his son passed away. Angrily, the rival's father shouts that his son did not pass away, and that it's no big deal. The man in the suit then turns to our MC and says he's there on the Dragon King's orders. Hearing that, the protagonist is shocked, and the rival's father can't believe what he just heard. The vice president realizes that our MC knows the Dragon King and is left stunned. Our MC and the bodyguard now in the car on their way to meet the mysterious boss. In the vehicle, our guy calls his mother and reassures her, saying he'll be home soon. The doctor then thinks they don't seem like good people and asks what the Dragon King wants. The bodyguard scolds him, telling him to watch his tone when speaking about the king. Bead of sweat trickling down, the protagonist finds the whole thing very mysterious and asks who the Dragon King is. Annoyed, the man yells at our guy, saying everyone in the city knows his boss. He then explains that his boss's name is Long Qianqiu, the king of Jiangzhou's underworld. The protagonist remembers the man from yesterday and realizes he was the so-called Dragon King. The driver confirms he's his personal bodyguard, and our guy is surprised by this. At that moment, the luxury car drives up a road in the middle of a mountain. When they arrive at the mansion, several men in suits bow the bodyguard and greet him. The man then turns to the doctor and asks our MC to follow him inside. A little nervous, the protagonist agrees and braces himself for what's to come. The two then begin to walk up the stairs toward the meeting place. Outside, they spot an elderly man practicing calligraphy in a beautiful garden. The bodyguard says the boss doesn't like to be disturbed and asks our MC to wait. The protagonist silently watches the underworld boss practicing his calligraphy with intense focus. With a keen eye, our guy analyzes the art being created on the paper. The poem speaks of a hero who, despite being victorious and holding the world in his heart, grew old and his life was wasted. Suddenly, the protagonist whispers the word pity, catching the older man's attention. At the comment, the underworld boss slams his brush on the paper, looking irritated. The powerful boss turns to our MC with a terrifying aura and an intimidating glare. Desperate, the bodyguard forces our guy's head down and demands that he apologize. His employee, the older man, asks our MC what he meant by that. Our guy then explains that the poem is about a general who wasn't appreciated in his time. He continues, saying that the boss's strong and heavy calligraphy doesn't match the poem. Our guy compares the feeling to that of a brave old general who is now at the end of his life. Seeing the terrifying glare of the boss, the protagonist gets scared, thinking he said too much. But to everyone's surprise, the powerful man bursts into loud laughter. He then compliments our guy, saying he has a good eye for people, which startles him. The boss then gets serious and reveals he called our young man there because he desperately needs his help. With a somber expression, he reveals that his time is running out and asks the doctor to cure him. Our protagonist is stunned by the old dragon's request. The old man says that for 9 years, not a single doctor could diagnose him, but our young man nailed it on the first try. So, our guy gets all nervous, saying he's just an intern and isn't sure he can actually cure him. But the big boss says he trusts him, and if it doesn't work out, it just means his time has come, and he won't hold it against him. Hearing the MC is moved by the trust the old man is placing in him. He closes his eyes for a moment and makes a huge decision. With that, our young man agrees to help and starts checking the old man's pulse. However, upon feeling the big boss's pulse, he's taken aback by what he discovers. He notices the man's arm is ice cold, as if frozen, so he asks for the other arm. As soon as he touches the other hand, he feels an intense heat, like it's on fire. The Dragon King then anxiously asks if the boy has figured anything out. With a serious look, the protagonist reveals that he's very ill and has, at most, 7 days left. At this, the bodyguard flies into a rage, threatening our young man for saying something so absurd about his boss. The Dragon King yells for his employee to shut his mouth and asks what's causing the illness. Our protagonist then puts his hands together and reveals his final conclusion, stating that he has been poisoned. Our guy asks about the symptoms, and the big boss explains that after a while, he felt energies of ice and fire clashing inside his body. Our boy then explains that it's not a common poison, but a powerful sorcery made from 5 venomous animals, which hides within the blood. The big boss confirms the diagnosis is correct, saying that no hospital could detect the poison when he was examined. Our young man continues describing the symptoms, saying that first came the abdominal pain and a chilling sensation that lasted for 3 long years. He then explains that now the symptoms have reversed, and the big boss's body has become extremely sensitive to heat, as if he were in flames. The boss is shocked and confirms that everything our young man said is perfectly correct. Our protagonist says he's 100% certain and reveals the poison is the yin-yang goo serpent. At this, the bodyguard gets excited and asks if, now that they know what it is, he can cure his boss. Our protagonist becomes thoughtful for a moment, appearing to analyze the situation carefully. He then recalls a miraculous technique he learned called the opening of the celestial eye. It's explained that this technique refers to a hidden eye located right in the center of a person's forehead. With this eye open, one can see invisible things like ghosts and demons and even predict the future. However, ancient knowledge reveals that not everyone can awaken this powerful eye. With this ability, he could find the poison in his blood, but he hasn't had time to train the technique yet. The boss then asks if he has thought of a way to cure him, and our boy replies by asking if he's ever heard of the celestial eye. The boss says he's heard of the technique, but knows it's something only monks and masters can command, so he asks what it has to do with his poison. Our guy confirms it's the key to the cure, and with the celestial eye, he could locate and remove the poison. With a serious expression, the powerful boss says this is no ordinary technique, and that he believes only 3 people in the world can use it. He then begins to list the masters, mentioning the leader of Wudang Mountain and also the Grand Master of Longqiu Mountain. In their world, these individuals are great sages. And finally, he mentions the 3rd person, the living Buddha of the Celestial Palace in Tibet, a young monk who meditates amidst a divine light. A little later, they're driving down a road. The car is speeding along. Inside the vehicle, our protagonist wonders who would have the guts to curse the Dragon King. Then flashing back 1 hour, we see a strange purple mark on the old man's back. Our young man warns the big boss that the treatment might hurt a bit, but the man says he can handle the pain. Drop of sweat on his face, our MC takes a deep breath. He then picks up an acupuncture needle. The boy begins to apply the needles to specific pressure points on the old man's body. His eyes widen with total focus on the task at hand. A vision of energy shows the big boss's meridians being activated by the technique. Sitting up, he applies the 9th and final needle to finish. After it's all over, the bodyguard supports his boss while our young man says he's done. The employee is shocked, commenting that the meridians that were squirming like worms are gone. Looking at the old man's back, you can see that the purple mark from the curse has disappeared. The MC says the treatment buys him 1 month, but they need to find someone with the celestial eye. The bodyguard says he will go find the living Buddha, and the big boss thanks our boy for his help. We return to a peaceful landscape of mountains with many trees in the background. Our MC stresses that they need to hurry because, in 1 month, there will be no hope left. With a serious look, the guard agrees and says he'll handle it as quickly as possible. Now inside the car, our young man asks what this Tiger list they mentioned is. To explain, the bodyguard asks if the boy knows about the Forbes billionaires list. Our MC confirms he knows it's a list of the world's wealthiest people. At that, the employee reveals that, just like that list, there are the Dragon and Tiger lists. He continues, explaining that the difference is that they rank the greatest martial arts masters. The Tiger list is updated every 5 years during a major martial arts competition. Only the top 30 make the list, and before he got sick, the big boss was ranked 12th. Our young man is impressed by this information and immediately asks about the Dragon list. The Dragon list is updated every 10 years, and the masters gather to challenge one another. He then reveals that the leaders of Wudang and Longqiu Mountains are ranked 2nd and 3rd on the list. In fourth place is the abbot of the Tianlong Temple, and in fifth, a powerful woman from the Murong family. At the top of the list is a man named Xiao, who commands an army of 1 million soldiers and is considered a god of war. 10 years ago, the masters challenged him but couldn't even withstand 3 of his blows, and he's only 35 years old. Our MC is shocked by his age, and the employee says he made the list at just 25, which is incredible. He then mentions that there are rumors that this master's strength is nearing the level of a god, and that he might enter the god list. Our young man is confused by this and wonders what this new list could be. The man says he doesn't know much, only that it's updated every 30 years with the world's greatest experts. He then admits that with his power level, he doesn't even know where the dragon list masters compete. Our protagonist is very curious and says he would love to see the experts from the god list in action. But he quickly plays it off, saying he was just kidding and would never dare compete with such powerful people. The luxury car finally stops, and the bodyguard announces they've arrived at the hospital. Our young man nods and tells the man to contact him if they have any problems with the boss. Now inside the building, our MC walks down the hallway. Arriving at one of the rooms, he opens the door and tells Sister Lin he's here. But as soon as he looks inside the room, his expression changes. Inside, a beautiful woman with purple hair is sitting on the bed, her clothes a bit loose. The woman turns to him and says he's finally here, that she was getting worried. Face turning red, our boy covers his eyes and points out her state of dress. Still not getting it, the purple-haired woman just looks at him, completely confused by the situation. With a cute face, the woman says she forgot to get properly dressed, leaving him speechless. This our protagonist approaches to help her. While fixing her clothes, our MC advises her to ask a nurse for help next time. But the woman places one of her fingers on our young man's lips, telling him to be quiet. She then leans in and says that no nurse is as gentle as our protagonist. The woman then pulls him closer and asks our young man to let her be his girlfriend. Caught off guard by the proposal, our MC turns completely red. With that, the woman pushes him onto the bed and asks why he isn't answering, leaving the young man cornered. She then promises to make him the happiest man in the world, and he thinks he can't refuse. With his face still red, our young man finally agrees to her proposal. But the purple-haired woman starts to hold back a laugh at our boy's reaction. The woman bursts out laughing and says he's so easy to trick. Our young man realizes he's been had. She asks him to grab a new shirt since the buttons on hers popped off. As he helps her dress, the woman comments that he wasn't decisive enough with Go Xiaokong. Our guy is surprised, and she says everyone in the hospital knows what happened. The woman then warns him that a moment of pity could cost him his life next time. Our protagonist remains silent, reflecting on the woman's words. We see a wider shot of the hospital room. On the gurney is our protagonist's rival, completely wrapped in bandages. The protagonist's ex-girlfriend says she's glad he's finally awake. She then explains that the surgery was a success, and he'll soon make a full recovery. But the guy wakes up absolutely furious and starts screaming at her to get out of the room. The doctor is shocked by his reaction, and the man repeats his scream for her to leave. However, as she's leaving in tears, the side character tells her to wait. With a hateful glare, he blames her, saying that if it weren't for her, none of this would have happened. He thrashes around in a tremendous rage. The guy vows to get revenge on our MC and destroy his entire family. The protagonist heads home. Our MC tells his mom he's finally back. His mother then runs to him and bombards him with questions about what happened. With a smile, our boy reassures her, saying everything is fine for now. The woman hugs him, much more relieved to know he's safe. She then remembers that a Mr. Xiao sent something for him, surprising our young man. His mother then shows him a box and explains that it's a gift from the Dragon King himself. He opens the kitchen and finds a 100-year-old wild ginseng inside. This type of ginseng is extremely rare, and its value is simply incalculable on the market. He realizes the item's value and thinks it will be great for martial artists. He then remembers the Dragon King and realizes the old man knew exactly what he needed. With the ginseng in hand, our boy believes he can now become someone more powerful. He then grips the root firmly, thinking about the possibilities it could bring him. Our protagonist says he's tired and is going to skip dinner to go straight to his room. Without wasting a second, he enters his room and shuts the door so he won't be disturbed. Inside the room, our young man enters a meditative state, and several books appear around him. These books are actually ancient and very powerful cultivation techniques for anyone. He then picks one of them up and reads about a technique that makes its master invincible. Our boy gets excited because this technique is perfect for someone with no cultivation. Without a second thought, our MC eats a piece of the ginseng to begin the process. He then sits down to meditate and a book floats above his head, ready to begin. With his eyes closed, he begins to inhale all the innate energy of that place. With the energy flowing, he concentrates on opening his meridians very calmly. Suddenly, our protagonist opens his eyes with a look of surprise on his face. He feels the natural energy in his body and finds the sensation very refreshing and pleasant. With a smile, our boy decides to absorb and feel this new power with calm and peace. The sun rises after the protagonist train through the night. Still meditating, it's visibly noticeable in his appearance that he has changed. His physique is clearly different. MC exhales and shows off his new, stronger form. With a snap of his fingers, a bluish energy manifests around his hand. Our MC then says that with what he's mastered, he'll start with those who bullied him. With a confident look, he vows to make everyone who looked down on him admire him. We see a sign that shows the VIP wing. Shortly after, an elevator door opens to reveal our protagonist. As soon as he steps out, a female doctor finds him, looking quite irritated to have finally tracked him down. Our boy asks what she wants, as there's nothing between them anymore. The woman then advises him to go beg for forgiveness from some guy named Xiao, making him serious. She threatens him, saying he could even lose his job at the hospital. Ignoring the threat, he asks if that's all, and the woman is furious at his calmness. Our MC figures out she's afraid of getting dumped, tells her to get lost with her boyfriend. The doctor is left completely speechless and screams in anger as he simply walks away. Our young man then ignores it all, and thinks that he needs to get breakfast to Linji right away. He then heads to the hospital's special care wing to deliver the food. Arriving there, he apologizes for the delay and offers the breakfast options to the girl. Sitting on the bed, the purple-haired woman asks if our young man isn't going to feed her. She gets closer to him and reminds him that they have a contract, making our boy feel awkward. With no other choice, our MC picks up a dumpling and brings it to the woman's mouth, asking her to eat slowly. She then opens her mouth to eat, but the food seems to be very hot due to the steam. At this, the girl complains about the temperature, and our young man gets worried, asking if she's okay. She then leans in and says he should have blown on the food for her, making the boy blush. At that moment, the director appears at the door and coughs to get their attention. Our protagonist is startled and tells the woman that Director Bai has arrived. With a serious expression, the blue-haired director just stands at the doorway. The girl then greets the newcomer, who comments that her injury doesn't look so bad. With a sarcastic smile, the purple-haired woman tells the director to leave if she's seen enough. The young man tries to say goodbye to get out of the situation, but finds himself caught in the middle of major tension. Suddenly, both women shout for him not to leave. Linji then asks what the director wants, and she replies that she came to see our boy. The director then beckons our young man to go with her, and he agrees instantly. The woman on the bed tries to stop him, saying he's on duty and can't leave. But the director retorts that he's not a professional and tells her to find another servant. The woman on the bed thanks her for the reminder and says she's satisfied with our boy's service. She then gets closer and declares that she'd even like him to be her boyfriend, making him flustered. Our protagonist is left completely speechless. Angrily, the blue-haired director opens the door to get out of there as fast as possible. She then yells for our young man to get out of that room if he still wants to work at the hospital. They are surprised by her reaction. He then follows her, and they arrive at a balcony with an incredible view of the city. At this moment, the director questions him about his relationship with the purple-haired girl. Awkwardly, our MC says it's just a misunderstanding and their relationship is strictly patient and caregiver. But the blue-haired woman gets annoyed and asks what kind of patient lies on top of their caregiver. The young man then realizes that the director seems to be very angry about the whole situation. With a serious look, she warns him that the girl is not who she seems to be and tells him to stay away from her. Our boy then awkwardly explains that the woman is his only client at the moment. The woman then reveals that this girl took someone's life, and it was her own fiancé. Our protagonist is completely shocked and speechless at this revelation. She continues, saying the case was covered up due to a lack of evidence, and the girl was only kicked out of her family. The director says that behind her beauty lies the venomous heart of a snake that has deceived many men. Confused, our MC asks how the director knows so many details about the girl. With a serious expression, the woman begins to explain her relationship with the mysterious girl. But she changes the subject and promises to help him get his doctor position back if he stays away from the woman. With a smile, our young man agrees and says goodbye to Director Bay. But she stops him and asks him to call her sister from now on. Our boy turns completely red and flustered at the request. At that moment, the cell phone in his back pocket suddenly starts ringing. On the other end of the line, a voice threatens him and tells him to go to an abandoned building. Our MC is completely shocked and breaks into a cold sweat. The scene then cuts to the abandoned building, which appears to be under construction. Inside, a group of thugs with bats is waiting for him. Then we see Master Go, all bandaged up, and a henchman asks if they really need so many men. With a vengeful look, the young master says he won't go easy on him. Then we see that they have the protagonist's mother as a hostage. The henchman then approaches the woman and asks if he can have her afterward. Master Go seems confused and asks what he wants with the hostage. The man then says he has a thing for more mature women. The tied-up woman looks scared and asks who they are and what they want. With a mocking smile, Master Go asks if she doesn't recognize him. The lady then tries to break free and yells that what they're doing is a crime. The henchman then slaps her hard across the face and tells her to shut up once and for all. He says he's not afraid of anyone in this city. The young master then says that our MC did this to him and that he's going to get his revenge. Our MC's mother then looks at them with a look of contempt. She bites the henchman, but the man kicks her, making her fall to the ground. At that moment, our protagonist arrives and yells young Master Go's name. With his eyes glowing with rage, our boy asks where his mother is. With a mocking smile, Master Go says that the guest of honor has finally arrived. The villain then points to the woman on the floor and taunts him, not knowing if she's still alive. Our young man then sees his mother on the ground, all beaten up, and becomes desperate. With tears in her eyes, the lady begs her son to run because there are too many enemies. But the boy ignores her plea and explodes with rage, yelling that he will finish them all. From his wheelchair, the young master then orders his henchman to stop him. With a furious look, our protagonist prepares for the fight. Without wasting a second, he lunges toward the first henchman in front of him. In the blink of an eye, our boy is already in front of the man, ready to strike. And with a single blow to the enemy's face, the first one is easily defeated. With the henchman on the ground, the young master yells angrily for the others to get him already. Surprised by our protagonist's strength, the other thugs get ready to attack. Then the 3 remaining henchmen charge our boy together with their bats. But with incredible speed, our MC dodges all their attacks with ease. Ignoring the extras, he appears in front of the young master for the final attack. With a devastating punch, our young man lands a direct hit on the villain's face with all his rage. Master Go is stunned by his speed and strength. Our protagonist then stares him down with a cold look. In his mind, he then starts to recall how he defeated each of the henchmen. With a powerful kick, he struck one of the men in the face without a shred of mercy. The other thug didn't even have a chance to react to our boy's swift blow. In the blink of an eye, all the enemies were already down and defeated on the floor. The last remaining henchman is completely terrified by the scene he just witnessed. RMC then prepares to finish off the last enemy left standing. The man stares at him in terror, calling him a demon while our young man takes a deep breath. Our protagonist then stares at him with a cold gaze and says, "Now it's your turn." Shocked, the henchman pulls out a knife and yells that it's a humiliation to be defeated like this. With his face full of rage, the man shouts that this is a disgrace to him and his men. The guy then tries to attack the protagonist's stomach with the knife. Seeing this, his mother screams his name in desperation. Master just watches with a mocking smile, not caring at all. The henchman lands the blow on the protagonist's stomach. However, the protagonist's skin is like dragon scales, shattering the blade. Shocked, the man wonders if he's even human, as only legendary experts possess such strength. Our protagonist then glares at him with a dark look, and the guy is terrified. Realizing the huge power difference, the thug decides it's better to run. But before he can move, our young man grabs his shirt, preventing his escape. A strong energy courses through the man's body, breaking his shoulder. Screaming in pain, the henchman falls to his knees, unable to move properly. Completely defeated, the man starts begging for his life. On his face, we see pure desperation as he pleads not to be finished off right there. RMC then lifts him up and says he should have known this day would come. The henchman then threatens him, saying the Dragon King won't forgive him if he takes him out. Our young man seems to recognize the name and asks if he really knows the Dragon King. The guy confirms he's one of the Dragon King's men and begs for forgiveness, apologizing. Our young man thinks he can't end him if he belongs to the Dragon King, but knows he's dangerous. At that moment, his mother wakes up and begs him not to do anything foolish. Relieved, our protagonist goes to her to help her cover up with his jacket. Our boy then apologizes for getting her involved in this, but the lady says it's okay. Suddenly, footsteps are heard, and 3 men in black suits appear on the scene. The 3 men in black suits approach, and the leader calls out our young man's name. The newcomer then surveys the scene, and our MC recognizes him as Xiao Yun. Desperate, the henchman begs Mr. Zhao for help, saying our young man wants to finish him. With a serious look, Mr. Zhao faces our boy and asks what he did there. The thug then points to our MC and says he defeated all of his men. Surprised by the scene, Mr. Zhou asks if our young man did all that by himself. The guy then confesses that it was young Master Guo who brought them there to teach him a lesson. With an irritated look, Mr. Zhou yells at the henchman and tells him to shut up. He then asks about young Master Guo. Mr. Xiao then says our young man is a guest of the Dragon King and asks if the henchman was challenging him. The henchman is in shock to discover our young man's connection and wonders how that's possible. Ignoring the man's desperation, Mr. Zhao just stares at him with a look of contempt. The thug is so terrified by the situation that he ends up wetting himself out of pure fear. Mr. Xiao then turns to our MC and tells him to take his mother to the hospital, as he will take care of everything. With a confident smile, the man guarantees that those guys won't show their faces in front of them anymore. Our boy then agrees to the proposal and decides to leave the matter to him. With that, our protagonist calls his mother, and the two leave the scene, leaving Mr. Zhou behind. As soon as they leave, one of the subordinates asks Mr. Joe what they should do with the thugs. He then responds coldly, telling them to do the usual and make them disappear. They arrive at the hospital's emergency room. Now in the examination room, our young man asks his mother if she's feeling okay, and the lady says yes. Our MC's mother then thanks Dr. Bai for all the help she's given them. The doctor hands her some medicine and tells her to take care, while the lady praises how thoughtful she is. Embarrassed, our protagonist asks his mother to stop that conversation immediately. In his thoughts, the young man worries and hopes the doctor wasn't offended. The doctor then tells the lady not to worry, as our boy will be under her care. With a smile, the lady is very happy and thanks the doctor for all her help. Seeing this, our MC realizes that the doctor also has a very gentle side. He then watches her and thinks that being her man must be the best thing in the world. The doctor then notices him staring and asks what's wrong while our young man plays it cool. The doctor then informs him that she has already taken care of the paperwork to transfer him back to the department. After the conversation, the lady says her goodbyes and finally leaves the office. Alone, our MC thinks that he won't be a caregiver anymore and needs to let an acquaintance know. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise coming from the hallway and is completely shocked. Arriving there, he sees a man in a suit blocking the entrance to a room, preventing anyone from passing. From inside the room, our young man hears a woman screaming and cursing Lin Jingji's name. The scene then shows a blonde woman giving his acquaintance a hard slap across the face. With a red mark on her face, she seems to feel humiliated. Our protagonist then enters the room, and the aggressor angrily asks who he is to just barge in. The blonde woman is startled by our boy's arrival, and her bodyguards immediately surround him. Our MC then angrily asks who she thinks she is to be hitting other people. One of the henchmen puts a hand on his shoulder and warns him not to stick his nose where it doesn't belong. Without a second thought, our young man removes the henchman's hand from his shoulder. With a swift move, he throws the man in the suit to the ground. At this, the other two bodyguards surround him. The man in the suit then tries to punch our MC in the face to get revenge. But our boy blocks the punch with ease and uses a blue energy against the extra. In an instant, all the henchmen are on the ground, while the young man complains that his hand hurts. Seeing her men on the floor, the woman gets furious and turns her attention back to the girl on the bed. She then accuses the woman of being responsible for her brother's passing and of seducing other men. The aggressor raises her hand to slap Lin again, who flinches in fear. However, the protagonist blocks the slap. He positions himself in front of her to protect her. The blonde then questions who the girl has gotten involved with this time and warns the young man not to interfere. Our MC's acquaintance tells him not to get involved, as it won't end well for him. But he replies that there's nothing to worry about because he remembers her defending him in the past. Our boy says he trusts her because the woman helped him without caring who the others were. With wide eyes, the girl is speechless and can only whisper his name. She gives a slight smile, looking very happy and moved by the young man's words. In her thoughts, the woman remembers how she was taken advantage of for years with no one to support her. She reflects that she was already used to handling everything on her own and solving her own problems. But today, with tears in her eyes, the girl realizes that something has finally changed in her life. The woman thinks that a simple caregiver she hired stood up to defend her without fear. With a determined smile, the girl seems to have made an important decision. Back in the present, she touches our MC's arm and thanks him for all his help. The blonde woman then gets angry and asks how a caregiver dares to protect a murderer. Our young man replies that a hospital is for healing and that her words mean nothing. Not knowing what to say, the aggressor stammers while her henchmen remain on the floor. She then insults the girl, saying her brother must have been blind to marry her. The woman finally responds, saying she always tolerated her out of respect for her late husband, but won't put up with the insults anymore. Furious at the response, the blonde woman threatens her, saying she'll shut her mouth for good. But before the aggressor could do anything, our young man grabs her wrist tightly. Completely surprised, the woman stutters and asks what he thinks he's doing. With the woman pinned down, our guy asks her what he should do with her. The girl thinks for a moment. She remembers the blonde is afraid of the dark and water, so tossing her in the river would be a great idea. Our protagonist keeps a firm grip on her arm. The blonde woman then screams in desperation, saying they can't do anything because her family knows where she is. Furious at the threat, our guy's friend tells the woman to shut it. She then says she won't finish the blonde off because she doesn't want to get her own hands dirty. She warns that next time, she won't be as lucky as she was today. Our guy then lets the woman go, and she's not too happy about the humiliation she just went through. The blonde woman then turns around and says she won't let things end like this, and that she'll get her revenge on both of them. After the woman leaves, the girl thanks our MC for all the help he gave her. He then touches her face and asks if it hurts a lot from the slap she took. With a cute pout, she says it still hurts and asks him to blow on it to make it better. Our guy then says he'll get some ice and asks her to wait a bit, promising he'll be right back. With a smile, she agrees and gives him an okay sign with her hand. On top of a building, the silhouette of someone can be seen. It's soon revealed to be a woman with a sniper rifle up there. Back in the hospital room, our protagonist leaves while the girl asks him to come back soon. He then returns and applies the ice to her face. From outside, you can hear her complaining about the cold ice on her cheek. If it still hurts and she says no. He then warns her to be careful with the blonde. As she didn't seem like she was going to give up, she says that with him there, she doesn't need to be afraid anymore. He then reveals that he's been transferred and can no longer be her exclusive caregiver. He kneels at the foot of the bed and says he's very grateful for her help. But his dream is to be a doctor. She reminds him that she's also a patient and needs his care. She starts to tear up, so our guy gets flustered and promises to visit her every single day. With a smile, she hugs him and tells him to keep his promise. She then complains about her face hurting again and asks him to feed her, making our MC laugh. We see the outside of the hospital on a beautiful, sunny day. Next, the door to the conference room. Inside the room, the director is explaining the situation of a patient who is in critical condition. One of the doctors complains that if the patient passes, his research will be compromised. Annoyed by the lack of empathy, the director yells at the doctors and says she'll take over the case herself. At that moment, a nurse rushes in, frantic, and says the patient is not doing well. They act quickly, heading to the patient's room. The director arrives and asks what's happening. The nurses try to resuscitate the patient, but the case seems hopeless. The heart monitor then flatlines, showing that the patient's heart has stopped. With a sad expression, the nurse announces that the patient didn't make it and they need to inform the family. The director is devastated and blames herself for not being able to save him. Suddenly, our protagonist appears and tells the doctor that it's not too late. With a confident look, he states that the patient is still alive and that they shouldn't give up. Without wasting any time, our protagonist ignores the warnings and enters the room to save the patient. The irritated director orders our guy to stop immediately, warning him he could be arrested for this. But our guy completely ignores the director's warning and continues his procedure. The director then orders the security guards to remove him from the room, but they just stand there, unsure of what to do. With a determined look, our guy prepares to use his skills to save the man's life. As if he were raising Lazarus, the man's eyes shoot open. To everyone's surprise, the patient sits up in bed and starts coughing. Everyone in the room is in shock at what they just witnessed, unable to understand how it's possible. Outraged, our guy tells the director to continue the treatment and not to give up on the patient. The director quickly snaps out of it and agrees to continue the procedure. She then yells for the nurses to check the patient's vital signs. We see the office of the hospital's vice director. One of the doctors arrives in a panic and tells him that our guy just revived a patient in the ICU. She says the patient had already been declared gone by the director herself. The vice director is shocked and says it's impossible for the director to make such a grave mistake. The doctor says the director wouldn't lie to protect our guy and that he's been acting strange lately. The vice director's cell phone starts to ring. Answering the call, he finds out that our guy left the hospital in a hurry on the day his son disappeared. Furious, the vice director believes our protagonist has something to do with his son's disappearance. After all the commotion, our guy and the director are in a break room. The director then offers our guy a coffee and thanks him for all his hard work. With an awkward smile, he thanks the director for the coffee. She then says he was incredible today and that she now sees him in a new light. Our guy gets a little embarrassed and says he's learned a lot from her. He continues, saying that saving lives is their duty and that she is his greatest role model. The director is left speechless and blushing from the compliment. She then tries to hide her embarrassment by taking a sip of her coffee. Our guy seizes the opportunity and tells the director that he likes her. The vice director appears and praises our MC, calling him a miracle doctor. Our guy tries to be humble, saying that as doctors, they know reviving the deceased is impossible. The vice director tells our guy not to be modest, as he has brought honor to the hospital and will be rewarded. Our guy is confused by the vice director's attitude and wonders what he's getting at. The man then praises the director for insisting on keeping our guy at the hospital. He welcomes our protagonist and says he has great expectations for his future. The vice director then reveals that our guy will be in charge of the ICU patient from now on. The director, annoyed, questions the vice director's decision to put our guy on the special patient's case. She argues that the patient has been in a vegetative state for 5 years and our guy wouldn't be able to cure him. The man ignores her concern and tells them both to go see the patient instead of just standing around talking. But before leaving, he turns to our protagonist. Director then asks if he's seen his son in the last 2 days. Our guy coldly denies it, saying he hasn't seen anyone matching that description. The man then says his son is a problem child and tells them both to get to work. In his thoughts, the vice director threatens our guy, saying that if he doesn't tell him what he knows, he'll regret it. After the man leaves, we see the completely empty hospital corridor. The vice director makes an important call, looking very worried. On the other end of the line, a man asks if this is the doctor from the hospital. The vice director confirms and says he needs to tell him something very important. He then explains that a cocky rookie doctor is taking care of his father and that he's afraid the worst might happen. The man on the phone becomes furious and yells that if anything happens to his father, everyone at the hospital will pay. With a malicious smile, the vice director says that he's not just going to get our guy fired, but also thrown in jail. Arriving at the special patient's room, our guy and the director find the man in bed. In the bed, we see the elderly man in a vegetative state while a nurse attentively cares for him. The director then asks the nurse to leave so they can examine the patient. With that, she hands the man's chart to our MC, who begins to read it carefully. The report says he fell into a coma out of nowhere, and several doctors have tried to save him without success. He analyzes the details of the chart but finds nothing that catches his attention. So our guy decides to use his own methods and starts checking the patient's pulse. Surprised by his action, the director asks if he's ever studied traditional medicine. She's already seen the old man's exams, and it's a miracle he's still alive. Our MC says his pulse is too strong, it's like he's just sleeping, it might be a type of lost soul sickness. The director is confused by the explanation and asks what this lost soul sickness is. He explains that according to legend, humans have 7 souls, and losing one of them can be fatal. With this, our guy concludes that the patient has likely lost his soul. The woman is shocked and says this goes against everything she's learned, and asks how to cure him. Our guy says that to cure a lost soul, they need to summon it back. The atmosphere in the hospital room becomes tense as our guy prepares to begin his procedure. The director is shocked and asks if he's really going to summon the patient's soul. For the ritual, our guy says he needs a personal item, and the director confirms that the coat belongs to the patient. With the item in hand, our guy closes his eyes and begins to murmur as a golden energy emanates from him. She watches, impressed, thinking that this doesn't look like a medical treatment, but more like some kind of spell. At that moment, she gets startled and alerts our protagonist that the patient just moved. Our MC then opens his eyes with a smile and says that, thankfully, his method is working. The room door is thrown open and someone very angry appears, yelling. The furious man asks what they are doing to his father, while the vice director appears behind him with a victorious smirk. Our guy calmly asks if the man is the patient's son. The vice director seizes the chance to yell at our MC, saying he shouldn't be treating anyone. He then turns to the director and accuses her of being an accomplice. The man then assures the patient's son that the doctor will be suspended and the family can even sue him. Our protagonist realizes this was all a plan by the vice director to use the patient's family against him. Calmly, our guy says it was the vice director himself who put him in charge of the case. With a confident smile, our guy says that on top of everything, the patient is about to wake up. Old man a hard slap across the face, yelling, "AKUP, ya obum." The director and the others are completely shocked by our MC's unexpected action. In his thoughts, the vice director celebrates, thinking that he's just dug his own grave. The patient's son becomes furious and accuses our protagonist of assaulting his father. The man grabs MC by the collar and orders the vice director to fire him immediately. But our protagonist remains calm and simply says that the man's father is about to wake up. At that moment, the patient starts to cough in the bed, leaving everyone surprised. The vice director gets desperate, hoping the old man doesn't wake up now. And the patient spits a glob of green goo right in the vice director's face. With his face covered in gunk, the vice director complains about the horrible smell of the slime. Surprised, the son approaches his father and asks if this is really happening. The old man finally opens his eyes and in a very weak voice asks for some water. The director quickly helps him sit up and offers him a glass of water to drink. The son is emotional seeing his father awake, while the vice director is furious. The father asks why his son is staring at him like that, and the young man says he's been in a coma for 5 long years. Then, the old man notices his son's white hair, and says he must have suffered a lot during that time. Father and son then share an emotional hug. After the happy moment, the patient turns to our guy and asks if he's his new doctor. But the vice director interrupts, assuring him that he will take care of the doctor who assaulted him, and that he can rest easy. The old man gets furious and asks who said our guy assaulted him, because in reality, he was his savior. The father then explains that even in a coma, he could hear everything, and that the slap was essential to keep him from passing on. Regretfully, the son apologizes to our MC, saying he is his family's savior and asks if there's anything he could help him with. Our protagonist says there is indeed something he can help with. This surprises the man and the director with such a quick request. Our guy then explains that he's always wanted to be a real doctor, but never could for various reasons. Seeing that his plan has failed, the vice director starts to sweat bullets. With the request made, our guy adds that he has the power to help him become a licensed doctor. The man then starts to laugh and says he didn't expect our guy to be so direct. He then turns to the director and asks about our guy's skills, and she praises him highly. The man looks at the vice director and asks for his opinion, and the man agrees, stammering. With that, the patient's son guarantees that our MC will be an official employee and tells the vice director to handle everything. The director then congratulates our guy on his new job, and he celebrates excitedly. Our guy is so happy that he thanks her and gives the director a tight hug, making her blush. See a cute little version of our MC jumping for joy. Our guy takes the opportunity to ask her out to celebrate, but a nurse interrupts them. With a worried expression, the woman informs her that there are many people outside looking for her. They go down from the hospital to check. A mysterious man in a suit and sunglasses appears, holding a large bouquet of red roses. It's not just one, but a group of men dressed the same way, with luxury cars. The director and our guy are confused by the commotion. One of the men then approaches and offers the flowers to the director, calling her by name. Confused, the director takes the bouquet of red roses offered to her. Along with the flowers, she finds a card with an invitation for a date at 7 o'clock in the evening. Her expression changes completely to pure rage, and she crumples the invitation with all her strength. Our protagonist takes the chance to tease her, saying she already has a date lined up. With a furious look, the director yells that she doesn't know what date he's talking about and that she's not going. The director then turns and walks away, leaving our guy completely confused. Our guy then wonders if she meant she wouldn't celebrate with him, or if she was referring to the note. They go back inside the hospital. Inside, our guy's friend is undecided about which outfit to wear for her outing with him. She then turns to our guy and asks which of the outfits he thinks looks best on her. The question leaves him completely blushing and frozen. She notices his jaw is hanging open and gives him a little flick on the forehead for being distracted. Our MC then stammers that she looks beautiful in anything. She takes the chance to get close to our guy's ear and whisper that if she looks beautiful in anything, then he should imagine her without. The girl's comment makes our guy's brain short-circuit. With a provocative smile, she says that if he dares to agree, she'll actually take her clothes off. Our guy panics and says they're in a hospital and a nurse could walk in at any moment. But at that exact moment, someone knocks on the door and calls for her. A woman in a pantsuit enters the room and apologizes for interrupting. Her friend asks if something happened, but the woman in the suit sees their awkward position and offers to come back later. Our MC uses the chance to escape, saying he'll see her tomorrow, but she calls him back. The woman then pouts and complains that our guy managed to get away. She asks what her assistant wants, since she wouldn't seek her out for something unimportant. The woman then explains that there are two important matters, and the first is about the Chuyan family wanting a piece of land. With a cunning look, the woman says they can have the land, but she's not going to make it easy for them. The assistant gets the message and the director asks what the second matter is. She informs her that someone named Xiao has arrived in the city. The boss immediately suspects he came because of a certain Bai Bing, and the woman confirms it, saying he even sent flowers. This worries her because if it's true, our MC could end up in a whole lot of trouble. Meanwhile, our guy looks at his watch and says he won't be late on his first day as an official doctor. Suddenly, in the hallway, a group of nurses congratulates him on his promotion. Confused, our guy asks what happened and if the vice director really kept his promise. One of the girls shows him her phone and says everyone saw the announcement in the hospital's group chat and congratulates him again. Taking the phone, he sees the announcement message and confirms it wasn't a lie. He really was promoted. Happy with the promotion, our MC thanks the nurses and says he'll buy tea for all of them to celebrate. Continuing down the hall, he is greeted by other doctors. Now everyone treats him with much more respect. Our guy reflects on how things have changed and thinks that in this world, only the successful earn respect. He then arrives at Director Bai Bing's office door to thank her personally for the great opportunity. Inside, the director hears him knocking and, with a calm voice, allows him to enter. Our guy enters and thanks the director, saying he'll strive to be a great doctor and follow her example. But she cuts him off and tells him to skip the small talk as he's starting to see patients in the outpatient clinic today. The woman explains that he should have been promoted sooner but warns that due to his lack of experience, he must report everything to her. With a smile on his face, our MC agrees and promises to strictly follow all her instructions. Without further delay, the director goes back to focusing on her documents and dismisses him, saying he can leave. But before leaving, our guy notices something strange and asks the director what happened to her eyes. Up close, you can see they're purplish and irritated, indicating she hasn't been sleeping well lately. She then says it's nothing major, just an old problem with dry eyes that a simple eye drop can fix. Our guy gets worried and tells her to rest because health is important, and then says goodbye. However, as he's about to leave, the director stands up abruptly and calls out to him. Adjusting her glasses and with a cute face, the director asks our guy if he's free on Saturday night. Surprised by the question, our guy says yes, he doesn't have any plans for that day. The director then explains that on Saturday she needs to attend a banquet and invites him to be her date. And the hospital continues to operate. Our guy's friend yawns from boredom and complains that without him around, nights at the hospital are very dull. She then asks her assistant if the problem with the Qian family has been resolved, and the woman confirms it. The assistant hands her an invitation, saying that on Saturday there will be a banquet for a certain Xiao Chindi. With a mocking smile, our MC's friend comments that they're making a big fuss over nothing. With no interest at all, she says she finds it all very boring and throws the invitation away without a second thought. But the assistant says she has some information that might make her change her mind about going to the event. This piques the girl's curiosity, and with a sly look, she asks the assistant to spill the beans. The woman bends down to pick up the invitation and starts to explain what she's heard about the party. Handing the invitation back, she reveals that this Xiao person plans to do something important during the banquet. Apparently, the young man intends to propose to Director Bai Bing in front of all the guests. With a mischievous grin on her face, our guy's friend says that now there's no way she can miss this party. The next day, our guy is already in his new office, ready to start his work as a surgeon. He stretches satisfied, having seen 35 patients just today. He then checks his schedule, sees there's no one left to see, and decides to go home. But at that moment, someone knocks on the door. In a tired tone, our guy says to come in. To his surprise, it's his friend Lin, asking for his help and saying she's not feeling well. Our MC gets worried and quickly asks the girl what happened to her. At this, Lin starts to laugh and says she was just worried about his first day of work. She then reveals she brought a special lunchbox to celebrate, but the food looks very suspicious. His friend offers him some, but our guy is scared, thinking how bad it looks. Even so, he tries a piece and his disgusted face says everything about the taste of that food. The girl then forces him to eat everything, and the poor guy struggles to swallow the whole concoction. After recovering from the trauma, our protagonist asks Lin if she knows Xiao Qingdi. She says yes and explains that the guy is the second young master of the famous Xiao family. Our guy becomes thoughtful upon hearing about this family, as he's never heard of them before. The woman then says the Xiao family only has 2 members, but no one messes with them because of a protector. This makes our MC curious, and he asks who exactly this protector his friend is talking about is. She reveals that the family's protector is Xiao Jiu, the older brother of this Qingdi, a much feared man. The girl explains that he's a true god of war and commands an army of 1 million soldiers. Although not as strong as his brother, Qingdi is also a genius and has built a billion-dollar empire. However, his friend reveals that despite everything, the guy has a very big weakness. She says that because of his powerful brother, the young master is extremely arrogant and problematic. Lin reveals that Qingdi is Director Bai Bing's first love, which shocks our guy. Because of this, she warns him to stay away from the director, as the young master is possessive and won't like it. Our guy tries to say something, but his friend interrupts him and, disappointed, asks if he's already fallen for the director. All flustered, our MC says he was just curious, but the woman doesn't believe him and gets jealous. She then says she's very angry and that the consequences will be severe, making our guy apologize. She says she doesn't accept his apology, and with a mischievous smile, asks for a kiss in exchange for her forgiveness. Startled by the proposal, our guy runs off while Lin chases him through the hospital. We see Director Bai Bing's apartment, a huge and luxurious building. Inside, our protagonist is all dressed up in a suit his mother bought with great sacrifice. He then knocks on the door and announces he's coming in, as he found the door unlocked. The director is finishing getting ready and asks our guy to wait a bit on the sofa. Our guy is completely enchanted by the girl's beauty and can barely hide his astonishment. She then asks if she looks okay, and he awkwardly replies that she looks perfect. At that moment, they both turn red with embarrassment and look away from each other. The situation is interrupted by a driver who informs them that their car is ready. With that, they get into a limousine and speed off to the event. Arriving there, the place is filled with rich and important people, all very well dressed, from all walks of the upper class. Upon arriving, our guy thought it was just a simple dinner, but he realizes this is the true world of the rich. The director then approaches, taking our MC's arm so they can walk together. With a smile, she makes an unexpected proposal and asks him to be her boyfriend for just 1 day, leaving our guy surprised. Our guy panics, thinking about her fiancé Qingdi and how wrong this is. Arriving at the main entrance, some security guards bow respectfully to them. She then hands the invitation to the guard. However, the staffer explains that our MC's name isn't on the list, and therefore, he's barred from entry. The director gets angry at the situation and says she's the one who brought him to the party. At that moment, 3 young men appear, and the one in front recognizes her with a mocking smile. The guy starts to provoke our guy, but the girl cuts him off and tells him to stay away from her. Our guy then asks his partner who those guys are. She explains that one is Feng Yuling, one of the 4 young masters whose family owns hotels. The one with long hair is Li Qiancheng, another young master with a fortune of 10 billion. And the oldest is Zhou Hao, the leader of the group, whose family in the real estate business is worth over 100 billion. Our MC then realizes one person is missing and asks where the 4th young master is. The girl reveals that the last one is Wang Xuan, a billionaire who didn't want the family business and became a professor. She adds that he is a serious and humble person, completely different from the other three guys. Our guy is impressed and wonders who the director is to know so many powerful people. The director then warns him to be careful, as those three are not good people, and it's better not to start trouble. The three extras then comment that the party is for her fiancé and she can't enter with another man. With that, the guy in the middle approaches and says that stray dogs aren't allowed inside, and he will accompany her himself. Our pair is shocked by the extra's audacity, and the girl asks what he means by those words. The guy then smiles and says that only important people can enter, to avoid problems. The director isn't intimidated and questions him about the times they brought women to parties, and she never said a word. The extra replies with a smile that today is different, and that's why they didn't bring anyone. At that moment, the girl takes our MC's arm and announces that if that's how it is, they're leaving. But suddenly, a mysterious voice calls out to our guy and asks what he's doing there. Our guy turns around surprised and recognizes the voice, calling the newcomer Dragon King. The old company by a bodyguard appears, looking at our guy. The three young men quickly change their attitude and greet the old man with great respect. The man then shakes the hand of the group's leader and says they've grown up and become businessmen. Immediately after, he turns to our guy and asks if he also came for the party. Our guy replies that he was accompanying someone but was denied entry and was just about to leave. The old Dragon King comments that there's no place he can't enter. The old man laughs and says that in this city, there's no place his brother can't go. He then turns to the three young men and asks if he can bring his little brother inside. The three extras panic and stammer for them to come in right away. So, the man invites our group to enter and not to just stand at the door. One of the guys gets worried because if this Master Xiao sees our guy, they'll be screwed. The other says our MC is just a lucky doctor, and if he ruins the marriage proposal, it will be fun to watch. The one with the top knot says it was the Dragon King who brought him in, so they can just watch the chaos from the front row. He smirks maliciously, expecting the worst. With that, the three young men start whispering. Inside, the hall is full of rich and fancy people. Suddenly, someone announces that Master Xiao's car has just arrived. The guy with the top knot hurries to welcome the special guest with a smile. But soon his expression changes to one of shock. The blonde girl in the red dress gets out of the car and tells the extra to get out of the way, holding a wad of cash. The blonde girl stares down the extra with the money in her hand and asks if that's enough for him to move. The guy with the top knot gets furious and questions who she is and where Master Xiao is. At that moment, a white-haired man appears, and we find out he is the butler of the Xiao family. The guy with the top knot quickly changes his tune and asks the butler about Master Xiao. The old man replies that his young master is preparing an engagement gift and will arrive later. The top knot guy boasts that everything was prepared perfectly to please the guest of honor. He then points to the blonde girl, and the butler introduces her as the young lady of the Chuan family. The extra has a nasty memory about her family and the son who was taken out by someone. The butler glares at him angrily and scolds him for his lack of manners, scaring him. The girl then asks the old man when this Emperor Qing will arrive, and he says it will be a while. She announces she's not waiting and is going inside, while the top knot guy offers to escort her. Miss Qian turns and questions if he is one of the four young masters of Jiangzhou. He introduces himself with pride and calls his two friends over to greet the guest. One of the guys approaches and offers her a product, which she tells him to get lost for offering something so cheap. The third extra then introduces himself to the girl with a serious look. The blonde girl gets all flustered, her eyes sparkling, complimenting the guy's good looks. The extra says the title of young master is just a nickname while she's swooning. The top knot guy then suggests that his friend be her escort, since he's alone. With that, the girl accepts the proposal and says he will be her knight for the night. His friend tells him to take good care of the guest, and the other replies, asking if he thinks he's some kind of servant. The pair then leaves, and the host thinks that this woman is even more disgusting than his friend. Meanwhile, the Dragon King walks through the hall, being greeted by all the guests. Two girls notice our guy, and one of them comments that he's quite handsome. The other tells her to dream on, as the guy's date is much more beautiful and elegant than they are. Our MC then apologizes to his friend for making her go through that situation at the door. She tells him not to worry, that it's okay, and it wasn't his fault. Our guy then asks if she's been to parties like this before, and the girl says no. He gets nervous and says he's also worried about embarrassing her, and holds her hand. Our guy comforts her, saying he'll guide her, that they can leave if she feels uncomfortable. The top knot guy then gets everyone's attention and announces that the party is about to begin. With that, the doors open, revealing a man in a suit who enters the hall imposingly as his name is announced. The newcomer faces everyone with a confident smile. This is the guest of honor everyone has been waiting for. At this, all the ladies at the party are impressed by the man's good looks. He then notices the guests and comments that there are many new faces at this party. The guest of honor then laughs and says his brother would never come to such a small city. After all, his brother is known as the god of war of the northern frontier, a very powerful title. Hearing this, some guys who overheard the conversation are completely shocked. One of the extras is impressed and comments that both brothers of the Xiao family are incredible. The girls also comment on the brother's good looks, and one of them already claims him for herself. The guest of honor then turns to the crowd and says they are all lucky to be there. He then thanks the host for organizing this welcome party for him. The guy then pauses and prepares for the next step of his presentation. At that moment, he calls the director his fiancée, who is sitting in a chair in the center of the hall. With a determined look, he walks slowly towards the beautiful girl in the white dress. In his hands, he opens a small box, revealing a beautiful ring with a blue gem. Then, the guy gets down on one knee in front of her and proposes in front of everyone. Holding the ring, he makes a beautiful declaration to her, vowing to honor and love her forever. At this, the guests are in awe of the jewel, and one of them shouts that it's a diamond. However, she remains silent and seems not to have liked it. The guy insists, saying he knows it was all very sudden, but he promises to take care of her. Suddenly, the man snaps his fingers, and something starts to happen in the hall. With that, the ceiling of the hall transforms into a beautiful starry sky, highlighting the director's beauty. Tears start to stream down the director's eyes. She seems very shaken. At that moment, she starts to remember when she met our guy. In her memory, he was always very kind and considerate to her. Our guy even offered her a hot drink to warm her hands. Back in the present, she tells Xiao that, if things were different, they could have been together. Suddenly, Xiao gets closer and begs her to be with him. But the director gets angry and says it's impossible for them to be together. With a tear on her face, she asks that they both go their separate ways and be happy. Xiao is in shock at her words and can't believe what he's heard. Then, the guy with the top knot approaches and tries to say something to Xiao. But Xiao becomes enraged after hearing the top knot guy and asks if this is what she calls happiness. He points in her direction and asks if her happiness is being with that man, our guy. They are surprised, and the director holds onto our guy's arm tightly. She then confirms with a determined look that her happiness is this man. Our guy then says she doesn't know what she's saying, so she can take it back if she wants. But the director firmly refuses, saying it's impossible and she will never go back on her word. Then, the girl tells our guy they should leave, and they quickly move away from Xiao. Seeing this, the man warns her not to regret her choice as he clutches the box with the ring. Then, with a furious look, he says he's going to see her true happiness, now and orders the old man to destroy them. Our guy and the director walk down the hallway together. Suddenly, Xiao's old servant appears in front of them, blocking their path. The director then steps in front of our guy and questions what the old man is going to do. The servant ignores the question and simply advises the girl to reconcile with his master. But she refuses on the spot, shouting that it's impossible, because she won't go back on her decision. Seeing her refusal, the old man simply says he's sorry then. In an instant, the man appears beside the director and touches her shoulder. With that, the girl collapses to the floor, strengthless, wondering what happened to her body. Our protagonist rushes to help her and questions the servant about what he did to her. The old man replies that he will release her, but only after he's done with our guy. Desperate, the director yells for the guy to run and not worry about her. He realizes the enemy is strong, but our MC refuses to abandon his friend. So Xiao's servant stands still in the hallway and calls him out to fight. At that moment, the Dragon King appears, asking what happened to Miss Bei. Immediately after, he reveals himself and asks if the couple needs a ride home. Suddenly, Xiao appears with his subordinate and asks who this meddling old man is. His top-knot lackey then whispers in his ear, informing him that the man is the Dragon King. At this, the guy in the suit is surprised and asks if he's really the king of Jiangzhou's underworld. But the old man responds humbly that he's not a king, just an old man on the brink of kicking the bucket. He then approaches Xiao and asks him to leave them alone, as our guy is his savior. The rich guy scoffs at the request and asks how much a favor from an old man like him is really worth. Even so, the Dragon King tries to argue, saying it's better to have more friends than enemies. But Xiao scorns him and asks if an old man who's about to check out can be his friend. The old man's bodyguard gets furious at the lack of respect for his master. Ignoring the extra, shows a golden card and asks the old man to take a good look. The Dragon King is shocked to see it and recognizes the object as the purple gold order. Xiao then explains that he was sent by the 9th millennium to deliver a message for him to surrender. The old man is stunned and realizes that Xiao is not just a simple rich guy, but has the 9th millennium backing him. The rich guy then orders his servant to eliminate everyone who got in their way. Yao then glares and asks who will dare to help the director now. Even with the Millennium's decree, the Dragon King offers to trade his life for our guys. Our guy is shocked to hear the old man's offer. He doesn't understand why the old man is willing to sacrifice himself for him like that. The rich guy starts to laugh loudly, finding the whole situation very funny. He mocks the Dragon King and says he doesn't have much time left to be making such an offer. Seeing that the conversation is going nowhere, the old man prepares to fight. The Dragon King then orders his bodyguard to advance and start the battle. But Xiao's servant steps in front and says the fight is his. The king's bodyguard is not intimidated and goes on the attack. Guy's servant faces the blow head on without showing any fear. With a swift move, the old man leaps, dodging the bodyguard's strike. The old man lands a powerful kick to his chest. Impact of the blow is so strong that the man is thrown far away. The bodyguard braces himself from the impact and comments that the old man is really strong. The old man from the Xiao family looks at the bodyguard with contempt, but the bodyguard refuses to give up and charges forward with another punch. He threw a punch at the old man, who had already dodged his attack. The bodyguard is quickly surprised, looking for where the old man went. Suddenly, the old man emerges from the shadows with a strike cocked and ready for the guard. With that, the bodyguard takes a brutal hit that leaves him badly injured. The man falls to the ground, completely defeated by the enemy's strength, as his arm is crushed. The rich guy's servant lifts him up and starts to bend his arms to disable him. The old man then humiliates him, saying he's nothing more than a grain of rice. He then kicks the guard with all his might, sending him flying. But before he hits the ground, our guy catches him. Xiao's servant turns to our guy and says it's his turn now. At that moment, the Dragon King appears and says he's still alive and takes the lead. But our guy asks him not to do anything, because he can save the bodyguard. Our guy then concentrates and uses his special abilities to help the injured man. With a touch on the arm, he begins to use his healing powers to fix the guard's arm. A golden aura surrounds the man's arm as our guy uses his technique. Soon, he stands up and tells the man to test his arm, as he's already fixed it. Seeing this, the top-knot guy starts to mock, thinking our MC is just bragging. However, the bodyguard moves his arm and realizes it's completely healed. The man is overjoyed and thanks our guy for saving him. Xiao and his servant are shocked to see that our MC really did heal the bodyguard. The rich guy then gives a direct order and tells his old servant to finish them all. The old servant leaps towards the group to eliminate them. The Dragon King yells for our guy to watch out for the enemy's attack. The old Xiao servant says it doesn't matter how many times he heals others, they can be broken again. The Dragon King tries to defend but is hit and thrown back. The Dragon King falls to his knees, coughing a little. With difficulty, the old man gets up and asks who this incredibly strong servant is. The rich guy's servant then glares at him and says a man about to pass on doesn't need to know his name. He then charges at our MC, saying it's his turn now. But the bodyguard steps in front and tells our guy to run as fast as he can. The old man then smiles and says this time he'll send the guard to meet his maker. With his sharp claws, he prepares to tear the guard apart. Seeing the situation, the bodyguard yells for our guy to get out of there while he can. But Xiao's servant is faster and lands a fatal blow to the guard's chest. The man falls to the ground, completely defeated and with no chance to defend himself. The Dragon King then remembers who the servant is and says he now knows his identity. He reveals that the old servant is actually Eagle Claw King, Chen Tianzheng. The old man is surprised that someone still remembers his old name. The Dragon King becomes worried, knowing he can't defeat the Eagle Claw King. The Eagle Claw King then charges full force at our MC, yelling that he'll finish him. But his hand stops inches from our guy's face. The Eagle Claw King stops abruptly after hearing the sound of a gunshot. The old man manages to dodge the bullet coming at him just in time. Meanwhile, young Xiao just observes who has arrived. It's our guy's friend and her assistant, who just fired at the old Eagle Claw. The top-knot extra gets furious and asks if the girl knows what she's getting into. With a smile, she says yes, they dared to shoot, and that she didn't mean to miss the shot. She then turns to her bodyguard and asks why she didn't hit him with the shot. The top-knot guy tells the woman to leave, but she replies that she was invited to the party. The girl then declares that she's taking our guy with her, and that she's not leaving the event. At this, the rich guy questions her, asking if she's going to protect our protagonist too. The woman ignores Xiao and asks if he has that many guard dogs, and if he owns a kennel. Hearing the insult, the top-knot lackey becomes extremely irritated and starts to tremble with rage. Seeing that he was getting angry, our guy's friend's assistant points the gun at the top-knot guy. Then speaks up and calls for his old servant Chen. The Eagle Claw King glares at the bodyguard and asks if her gun was really pointed at him. Before the girl could answer, the old man zips past her at high speed, aiming for our guy's friend. The bodyguard falls to the ground, completely defeated, and the servant lunges at our guy's friend. The old man then grabs her by the chin and says he doesn't usually get close to women, but she's exciting him. He continues to provoke her, placing a hand on her shoulder, but the girl doesn't seem fazed. Seeing the old man messing with our guy's girl, he finally decides to act, throwing a punch at the old man. The old man turns and scoffs at our guy, asking what he could possibly do with no strength. Tries to land a punch on the old man's open fist. However, a huge wave of energy explodes from our guy's fist, sending the old man flying. The Eagle Claw King flies with full force and crashes into the elevator wall, shattering it. Our protagonist then stands there, furious that he messed with his girl. Everyone watching is shocked by our guy's strength and shouts his name in surprise. Defeated, Xiao remains unfazed. Our guy then approaches his girl and asks if she's okay. Rich guy Xiao then gives a dark smile and lets out a little laugh, finding the situation amusing. He then says he didn't expect today to become so interesting. Our guy did not like at all that they messed with his sweetheart. The gossipy top knot lackey tells Xiao that he doesn't need to get involved. The top knot guy says this is his turf, and our guy dared to cause trouble on it. He then gives the order for his men to finish our guy off once and for all. Immediately, the extras charge at our protagonist with everything they've got. However, our guy easily defeats those fourth-rate extras. In a swift move, he grabs one of the goons by the head and slams it into the ground. And right after, our guy lands a powerful punch to another guy's face. In just a few seconds, all the extras are thrown aside and defeated. Seeing this, Xiao and his servant wonder who this young man is and how he's so strong. MC just watches without saying a word. The top knot guy is completely shocked by what he just saw. He takes a step back in fear and wonders where someone so terrifying came from. Seeing his lackey's cowardice, the rich guy glares at him with contempt and calls him trash. Rich guy says that our guy's performance has interested him, but he orders him to kneel, responds with a simple and direct, "Get lost." Guy then laments our guy's decision with a smile on his face. Our guy then tells him to stop messing around and challenges him to a fight. Smile says our MC is overestimating himself. At that moment, the old eagle claw returns to the fight. The old man then tries to land a direct punch to our protagonist's face, who dodges it. But our guy is faster and lands a kick right in the old man's family jewels. With the blow, the servant falls to his knees in immense pain. The rich guy is surprised, and the old man on the ground warns him to be careful with our guy. Xiao does not seem to like what just happened at all. He then kicks his own servant away and calls him useless. The old man is thrown with full force against the wall and starts leaking oil right then and there. He then turns to our MC and says that not even a god can save him today. Xiao charges full force at our guy. Our guy tries to defend against Xiao's blow, but the impact is strong. With that, he is thrown back hard, landing on his butt on the floor. The antagonist then boasts that no one in the world could withstand his power. However, our guy gets up and Xiao is surprised that he's still standing. Without wasting time, Xiao attacks again, launching a blast of energy at our MC, sending him flying once more. Our guy is thrown against the door with full force, and Xiao believes he's been defeated. At that moment, the director starts screaming for him to stop hurting our guy immediately. Xiao then replies that he's going to show her how he'll finish him. Approaching our MC, he says he should feel honored to be defeated by him. The antagonist is annoyed that the girl cried over our guy. He unleashes another blast of energy at our guy. Lying on the ground, our protagonist starts to bleed non-stop. Seeing this, the Dragon King is shocked by the brutality of the fight. The director cries desperately, calling our guy's name. Meanwhile, our hero's girl just watches without saying a word. Xiao says that's enough playing around, and that he's going to deliver the final blow. He then lands a devastating blow on our guy with all his might. Our guy's consciousness begins to slowly fade. He is slum and DNTOTFLOR, CREIGACR. Seeing TS, the extras are shocked and wonder if our guy survived. GLCMSTOFLASIFFRNG. THD Arasitor falls to the floor crying and blaming herself for everything that happened. Brown key USD WCH Unibiel Tosawai WORD. Xiao turns to the DR and key ING and says it's his turn now. He says he planned to spare the old man's life, but he challenged him because of our MC. SIAO then says he will get his revenge on the old man and uses his powers against him. But before he can do anything, our guy tells him to stop. The antagonist turns around, surprised and in disbelief. Knees and injured, our protagonist tells SIAO to stop again. Seeing that he got up, Lin calls his name with a worried expression. Me director cries, asking if our guy is okay. Even all beaten up, our guy says it's okay, and it was nothing. Seeing this, the Dragon King asks if our guy is really just an ordinary doctor. He then says the guy is their hope and they need to protect him. Our MC thinks that he felt the last blow, but that something has changed inside him. At that moment, Xiao attacks again, sending our guy flying with a punch. However, he gets up and a blue aura surrounds his body, filling him with power. Our guy then taunts him, talking about the Xiao brothers, saying one is good and the other is trash. Our protagonist continues to provoke him. Then he asks with a smile if he would be the useless brother. Xiao becomes furious with the taunt and yells that he's going to finish him. Our guy just continues with his mocking smile. Without wasting time, he tells the enemy to shut up and prepares for combat. Then our MC charges forward with everything to hit the antagonist with a blow. Our guy lands a blow that is parried by Xiao's hand, but Xiao notices our guy's increased speed. The enemy boasts that he's no match and hits our boy, making him fall again. He quickly recovers and defends against a direct kick from Xiao. The kick lands squarely, knocking our boy to the ground. The antagonist Xiao says he's going to finish him once and for all. Our guy then smiles and says the enemy has used that move before. Seeing this reaction, Xiao is confused about what's happening. Suddenly, our guy charges at him with impressive speed. He gets close and says that now it's his turn to fight. With that, he lands a devastating punch right in Xiao's face, who was defending with his arms with all his might. The impact of the blow makes the antagonist stumble back a few steps, and without giving him time to react, our guy lands a powerful kick. The attack is so strong that the enemy is thrown to the other side of the room. At this, the Dragon King and his guard are shocked, wondering how that's possible. On the floor, Xiao sits completely confused by the turn of events in the fight. The antagonist is furious for being humiliated in such a way. He then gets up with a flaming aura and yells that he's going to finish our MC. Our guy advances and the antagonist asks what he's doing. Our guy says the best is yet to come, and the two exchange blows. The opponent gets frustrated for not being able to land a decisive hit. Our MC then taunts him again, saying he's still trash. Blinded by rage, the antagonist charges, yelling for our guy to drop. But our guy manages to defend against all the attacks with ease. Seeing this, the opponent is in shock, unable to understand how it's possible. Meanwhile, our guy remains calm in his defensive stance. Scared, the enemy asks who he really is, to which our guy replies he's just a simple doctor. He says it's his turn now, and takes an impressive leap to attack. While in the air, our guy closes his eyes and concentrates all his power. Then his eyes open with a blue glow, and he prepares the Divine Dragon technique. He then comes down with full force, landing a devastating blow right in the middle of Xiao's defense. The blow is so strong that it sends the enemy flying violently into the air. With that, he crashes to the ground while everyone looks on in shock. Our guy then walks towards the director, who calls his name, worried. He gets closer and says it's okay, and that he'll help free her. At that moment, the girl starts to cry with relief that he's safe. Our guy smiles and asks her not to cry because he's fine. He then lifts her up and hugs her while Lin watches with jealousy. RMC comforts her and thanks her for bringing him to the event. But the antagonist gets up, furious, and yells for our guy to get his hands off her. Suddenly, the sound of a gunshot echoes through the room and Xiao is hit. He falls to the ground, and we see it was Lin in the wheelchair who fired the shot. Everyone is terrified by the girl's action. But the girl says with a cold look that anyone who offends her doesn't meet a good end. Without hesitation, she points the gun at the old eagle claw and shoots him in the forehead. The old man falls to the ground lifeless, causing some extras to scream in panic. The old man's body is on the floor, and the extras look on, completely shocked by what just happened. The little blonde girl hides in fear and says that Lin is a crazy woman for doing that in front of everyone. At this, a group of extras starts to whisper, worried because now they are witnesses to a serious crime. The top-knot guy, after observing carefully, has an idea. He then approaches one of his friends and whispers a plan in his ear to resolve the situation. The guy says his friend is good with women and that they're in this together, so he should be the one to go fix it. At that moment, our guy is preparing to leave with Lin, but one of the extras decides to interrupt. The girl then turns to the man and asks with a cold look what he wants with them. The guy says she can't just leave after attacking the young master and asks how they're supposed to explain this. But the girl doesn't care what he says and takes the opportunity to call everyone their trash. He continues, saying that everyone in the hall is important and that she's not leaving until someone takes the blame. With a mocking look, Lin simply asks if he thinks he can stop her alone. Seeing that she doesn't intend to take the blame, the extra raises his hand, calling for some people. Several security guards appear to block her path. The Dragon King says that's not very gentlemanly, but the guy scoffs, saying he's not there to be a gentleman. The old man then smiles at the boy's audacity. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes throughout the hall, grabbing everyone's attention. At that moment, an army of men in suits appears, frightening everyone. The old man then says that young people should learn to have more respect for their elders. Seeing this, the extra is completely panicked, not knowing what to do now. Meanwhile, our guy tells the girl he's going to take Lin's assistant to get her injuries treated. Lin takes the opportunity to tease the director, saying our MC cares more about her than the director. Our guy then asks the old man for a ride to take the girl home safely. After that, they take her to Lin's mansion during the night. Inside, we see the assistant lying in bed, still in a lot of pain. He explains that her injury is serious and that taking her to the hospital would be a problem. Our guy then closes his eyes and begins to concentrate all his energy to heal her. With that, a golden aura begins to flow throughout his body and shines in his hand. He then uses his power to heal the injuries. The golden light concentrates on her wound, and the injury quickly begins to disappear. Is left with her mouth agape, thinking that ability is simply magical. Luxie looks exhausted and says she will wake up soon after resting a bit. Lin is impressed and jokes that she should keep him around as her boyfriend. With a thoughtful air, he says he might stick around for the next few days, and she wonders why. The guy then smiles and says he has something special he needs to give her. At this, the girl blushes and is left speechless by what our guy said. The gift is then revealed to be a bowl of hot noodle soup. Seeing the food, Lin makes a disappointed face, thinking the gift was just that. Our protagonist explains that she needs to eat well after everything. He then serves the dish to Lin, who seems a little touched by his gesture. She picks up a piece of sausage and prepares to eat. The girl then eats the noodles, looking very satisfied with the taste. With a huge smile, Lin praises the noodles, saying they're delicious. She thanks him for the food and our MC just smiles back, pleased with her reaction. Moda R Bayuan Jeff Armadestan CE. Inside, we see two guards standing at attention. A man in officer's uniform uses a holographic control panel. At that moment, a soldier approaches and reports that a squad has been completely eliminated. The officer then asks with a serious look if there's anything else to report. The extra seems a bit nervous and says the news is about his younger brother. The commander then asks why he's stuttering, and the guy says his brother got into trouble. Arsid Bya Soldire GST side. Salduar then reveals that the young master had his legs broken. After hearing this, the commander falls completely silent. The soldier then kneels and offers to send his men immediately. The commander then asks in a cold voice who was responsible for that. The extra then reveals that the person responsible was Lin. The commander says not to worry, as no one there could defeat her, that his brother is not his problem, and that he should learn to fend for himself. At the hospital, a nurse calls for OUR guy, saying he needs to go to the operating room. DONT hello. There, he sees several specialists and wonders what kind of important patient is there. At that moment, T. Dosio greets him and says everyone has arrived for the procedure. She then tells the other doctors that the surgery is very important and that saving lives is their duty. On the instrument table, we see some surgical tools ready to be used. We see a muscular man lying on the table with several cuts all over his body. Focusing on the patient's abdomen, we see it's covered in blade wounds. OUI is surprised and says the man's body is full of knife and gun wounds. THEDRC Toar then says that at any moment the patient could have a complication and they need to hurry. Time starts to pass as the doctors prepare for the complicated surgery. A surgeon begins to suture one of the patient's cuts very carefully. More time passes and the medical team continues to work hard to save the man. After several hours, the surgery continues non-stop, showing the difficulty of the case. With her hand covered in blood, THDRCR says the procedure is almost over. The hardest part will be repairing the heart and the artery. With a serious look, she says that no matter the chance of success, they cannot give up. They then remove a projectile from inside the patient's body. The medical team continues the surgery with full focus on the risky procedure. Durasitor operates attentively, each movement with an expression of pure concentration. With the forceps, SHE holds the projectile that was removed from near the heart. She is relieved to see she managed to remove the object without major problems. The doctor drops the projectile onto a tray and asks ORGUI to do the suturing. She then tells our protagonist to clean the wound, and he promptly agrees. Suddenly, the patient starts to hemorrhage, and the team panics. The heart monitor shows the man's heart rate dropping rapidly. Patient's blood pressure also begins to fall, and the situation becomes critical. In this moment of desperation, our guy offers to try to save the patient. But the other doctors scold him, saying he's just a rookie and shouldn't get in the way. The director then ignores the others and asks our guy if he has any ideas, and he confirms. With a serious look, our MC says he will use an ancient technique. At this, the extras complain to the director, saying that's just superstition. Our guy then tells them to trust him because he can find the hemorrhage, and if they don't try, the man will be gone. The medical team falls silent, unsure of what to do in this complicated situation. After thinking for a moment, the director looks at the young man and, with a determined look, tells them to let him try. He then begins the ritual by taking a bowl and dipping his finger in the water. As he concentrates, a blue energy begins to emanate from his hand and the bowl. At that moment, he directs the energy to the patient's chest, focusing directly on the heart. Suddenly, the team is shocked to see that the man's pressure has stabilized and the hemorrhage has stopped. The extras are incredulous, wondering how that is possible. Impressed, the doctors say our protagonist is incredible and even ask to be his disciples. However, the director interrupts them, saying the surgery isn't over yet and the celebration can wait. The sign on the operating room door shows that the procedure is still ongoing. Meanwhile, in the waiting room, a man with long hair waits patiently. Then the door opens and the director calls for the patient's family. The doctor takes off her mask and, with a smile on her face, announces that the operation was a success. The extra thanks her with a serious but visibly relieved expression at the news. The director then says that if it weren't for our guy, her friend might not have been so lucky. The man thanks our guy and says that if he ever needs anything, he can come to him. Our guy responds humbly that as a doctor, it was just his duty. With that, the two turn and walk down the corridor. The extra is thoughtful as he repeats our protagonist's name in a low voice. Sometime later in the break room, they prepare some coffee. Our guy and the director are relaxing while they drink their coffee. Suddenly, the director asks him where he spent the night, since he didn't go home. She then gets closer with a red face and asks if he and Lin did it. Our MC gets embarrassed and tries to explain, but she covers her ears and refuses to listen. Suddenly, our guy's cell phone starts to ring, and he sees the name, Dragon King, on the screen. He then answers the call, and they warn him to flee the city because someone very dangerous has shown up. In the hospital hallway, the protagonist answers a call and asks about someone named 9,000 Years. The voice on the other end explains that this man is the master of the Dragon Gate and is on his way to settle the score with him. The dragon then says that before, he could have just dropped everything and retired, but now things have gotten complicated. The protagonist asks if all this complication is because of him. The older man replies that it's not entirely his fault and that Emperor Xiao gave him a relic to capture the young man. And if he were to protect him, this 9,000 years guy wouldn't forgive them, and it could end badly for everyone. But he says that luckily, he received news that the man was attacked and his whereabouts are now unknown, is silent for a moment. He then thanks the Dragon King but says he can't leave. Annoyed, the old man asks why he doesn't want to leave since his life is in danger because of that man. Our boy explains that his mother has never left this city, so his father might still be able to find them. In a flashback, we see the silhouette of his parents together, and he says that's why his mother wouldn't leave, and neither will he. Running away isn't his style, he prefers to face problems head-on. On the other end of the line, the Dragon King understands the young man's decision and decides to tell him something about this 9,000 years. The boss reveals that this man is merciless to his enemies and to himself, and that he even took a life at his fiancée's grave. Shocked by the revelation, the protagonist is left speechless hearing the story of the ruthless man. The Dragon King continues, saying that this 9,000 years is the master of 14 gates and a highly respected person. Our boy then thinks that the man is truly cruel and asks who this Bai Yujing is. The boss explains that this person is the granddaughter of the Bai family and one of the two heroes of the world, along with this 9,000 years. He then reveals that Bai Yujing is the hospital director's cousin, leaving the protagonist surprised. Before hanging up, the MC asks for 9,000 years' real name, and the boss reveals it's Tao Yuan. Our boy thanks him for the information and says he needs to get back to work. We then see a flashback to the day of the surgery where the protagonist saved a life and met a mysterious man. Then we arrive at the protagonist's office. Sitting at his desk, he thinks about the name Bai Yujing and starts searching for it on the hospital computer. And he ends up finding a photo of the Bai family where you can see the director along with other very influential people. The protagonist looks closely at the family photo, but can't identify who Bai Yujing is. He then decides to search for the name 9,000 Years to see what he can find about the mysterious man. The MC wonders why that name sounds so familiar, as if he's heard it before. Suddenly, he remembers something and rushes out of his office. The person he was thinking of was named 9,000 Years. And he thinks he needs to hurry because the Dragon King is going after this 9,000 Years guy. With that, the young man runs desperately to the Dragon King's mansion to warn him of the danger he's in. Already at his home, the old man says goodbye to his grandson, asking him to obey his uncle when he arrives abroad. With tears in his eyes, the boy asks why his grandfather isn't going with them. The old man then explains that he's not used to foreign food and says the boy can visit him when he grows up. The little one then hugs his grandfather, crying, saying he doesn't want to leave him alone. After the farewell, the older man asks his bodyguard to take good care of the boy and ensure his safety. Suddenly, a mysterious voice appears, asking if they're preparing for a long trip. Turning around, the grandfather and his bodyguard come face to face with a long-haired man accompanied by some goons. The man says he sent his subordinates to invite the Dragon King, but he didn't show up, so he came in person. At that moment, the old man kneels before the long-haired man while the bodyguard holds the child. This 9,000 years fellow approaches the little one and asks for his name. The grandfather is desperate about the situation because he fears something bad will happen to his grandson. 9,000 years then asks why the old man is so nervous, as he wouldn't hurt a child. With a cold gaze, the man says that an old guy like him is just a waste of society's resources. Desperate, the old man kneels, begging the man to spare the lives of his grandson and his bodyguard. 9,000 years says the Dragon King is too old and it's time for him to retire. Seeing this, the bodyguard also kneels, begging for his master's life and offering his own in exchange. The long-haired man says he admires the guard's loyalty, but that this can't be solved with a trade of lives. The old man and his employee are devastated by this answer, as they don't know what else to do. With a serious expression, 9,000 years covers the boy's eyes and orders his goons to finish them both. The grandfather panics upon realizing they are about to be eliminated. Suddenly, one of the goons tries to attack the old man with a knife. Out of nowhere, the protagonist appears and lands a powerful punch on the goon, stopping him from hurting the Dragon King. The old man is shocked to see that the man who saved him is Xiao. Takes off his white coat, preparing for combat. Seeing this, the old man gets scared and yells for the protagonist to run away as fast as possible. However, the long-haired man says it's a small world, since they've met again. Our boy approaches and confirms that this man is indeed 9,000 years. 9,000 years then asks if our boy is there to save the Dragon King and what their relationship is. With a determined look, Xiao replies that the old man owes him big time, which is why he couldn't just stay away. 9,000 years questions if this debt is about the ice crystal or because of young Master Gu. Xiao is surprised that 9,000 years knows about everything, even what happened with Gu. 9,000 years then says it's no surprise he knows everything, because he wouldn't be in his position if he didn't. The protagonist asks if the fact that the Dragon King wants to retire and leave the country isn't enough for him. The old man throws himself on the ground as 9,000 years asserts that the Dragon King needs to be eliminated. The antagonist explains that the old man disobeyed Emperor Xiao and that someone needs to be held responsible. Outraged by the situation, Xiao yells that it's unfair and that the old man doesn't deserve such a cruel fate. It's not the Dragon King's fault, since he didn't know the young man would be attacked in that city. And if the guards perish protecting him, then the fault lies with Go himself. At that moment, one of the goons furiously lunges toward the protagonist to attack him. Our boy easily defends himself from the goon with a counterattack. However, the goon doesn't back down and throws a kick, but our boy dodges it. Xiao questions if this is 9,000 years way of solving things, just resorting to violence. The goon gets angry and says the kid has no right to question his master's methods. The side character lands another kick on the protagonist's defense. With a serious look, the MC says he's already figured out the goon's moves and that the fight is over. The goon throws a right hook that the protagonist easily dodges. After dodging, the protagonist lands a solid kick to the goon's stomach. After taking the hit, 9,000 years steps in front of his injured henchman. 9,000 years says the hero really wants to save the Dragon King and asks if he wants to make a deal. Without a second thought, the protagonist accepts his proposal to save the old man's life. The Dragon King tells Xiao not to get involved, but the protagonist says he'll decide for himself what's worth it. The antagonist then proposes a deal. He wants the protagonist to find who attacked him within 3 days. With a serious look, the MC accepts the deal. The villain tells Xiao not to disappoint him and turns to leave. With that, he orders his men to follow him out of the mansion. We see 9,000 years car driving away from the mansion. Inside the vehicle, the antagonist orders the driver to stop the car immediately. As soon as the car stops, the goon who attacked the protagonist spits up some red liquid. The subordinate apologizes for embarrassing his master, but the man says he did his best. The antagonist comments that Xiao seems to have produced an important figure. The goon then reports that he has already investigated the hero and that his mother is unknown. 9,000 years then orders his subordinate to uncover the protagonist's identity. To keep the sorcerer gods passing a secret and wait for the results. Back at the Dragon King's mansion, Xiao asks if the old man is okay as he helps him up so he doesn't fall. The man says the MC shouldn't have come and that now he's dragged into this mess. The hero replies that the Dragon King saved him twice, and he couldn't just ignore the situation. The old man then asks worriedly what they're going to do in 3 days to solve this problem. With a confident look, the protagonist says they just need to find one person and that there must be some clue. The bodyguard offers to help, but the old man scolds him, saying the situation is complicated. Indignant at the lack of confidence, Xiao asks if the old man doesn't believe in him either. The Dragon King explains that 9,000 years has many men and that even if he's injured, getting close is difficult. Closes his eyes. And says the protagonist shouldn't have accepted the deal, as it puts him on a dangerous path. Our boy then questions what the man means by this dangerous path talk. The Dragon King explains that in their world, there's nothing 9,000 years can't find out. Protagonist then asks why he sent him to investigate if he already knew who attacked him. The old man replies that the antagonist will surely block all information to make the search harder. Even so, Xiao says that doing nothing isn't his style and asks where the villain was attacked. Without hesitation, the three of them get ready to leave as the protagonist says he's going to the location to look for clues. The three then arrive at the hotel where the antagonist was. Upon entering, the protagonist notices that everything is clean and it doesn't look like a battle took place there. At this, the bodyguard explains that he already checked the cameras and that everything was cleaned up. With no other option, the protagonist thinks he'll have to use the motion spell to investigate the place. Then, the hero concentrates and starts making some hand signs. With his fingers intertwined, a blue energy begins to emanate from his hands. This power then flows throughout the entire room. The blue energy reveals the symbol of a snake on the wall. The Dragon King is shocked to see the image, as it seems he's seen it somewhere before. Q then asks what that is, and the old man says it's the same symbol as the person who poisoned him. The old man says the two incidents are connected, and that the snake is the totem of the sorcerer god cult. The protagonist then asks in confusion what this sorcerer god cult is. The old man explains that it's a mysterious organization and that no one knows where their headquarters is. The Dragon King begins to tell a story about how one day he saved a badly injured man on the side of the road. The young man stayed with him for 2 years and was from that very cult. The old man reveals that when he found out the truth, the man poisoned him so he wouldn't tell anyone. The man says he searched for the man and the cult for years but never found any clues. Yiqiu then comments that it's strange not to find anything, since modern society is so advanced. That's the mystery behind the organization. They are very discreet. The old man says the members use sorcery techniques to hide their tracks and obtain information. Shocked, the protagonist asks about these sorcery techniques, as he's never heard of them. The old man continues, saying they are so strong they could become the biggest sect in the world. The man then points to the snake symbol and says they leave it behind as their mark. Yiqiu comments that now that they know it was the cult, the list of suspects has narrowed down a lot. The Dragon King says that even so, it will be difficult to find the culprit in just 3 days. With a confident smile, the protagonist says that's not quite right. With a new plan in mind, the protagonist uses his power to track the culprit. The blue energy then flies out the window, and he tells his companions to follow it. Running through the streets, the group follows the energy trail. Continues on its path. The blue trail leads down an alley. The three arrive at a rather dark street, and Yiqiu says the hideout must be around there. Without wasting time, the old dragon kicks the door down with all his might. But upon entering the place, the three notice a strange smell in the air. Qiu spots a plaque with the same snake symbol, indicating that this is the right place. Surprised, the Dragon King and his bodyguard comment that this is the cult's headquarters in Jiangzhou. Suddenly, the three hear a noise coming from the back door. The guard asks who's there, but a voice replies that it's just a delivery guy. The man finds it strange, as he doesn't know anyone by the name the delivery guy mentioned. The delivery guy then explains that the package is for Dong Chen and that the handwriting was a bit messy. The man smiles and introduces himself as Dong Chen's cousin, saying he can receive the package for him. The delivery guy explains that he knows Dong Chen, and that's why he brought the package to him. The guard then asks if he wants anything else, but the delivery guy says he always gets a tip. The guard smiles and invites him in, saying they can talk better inside. 15 minutes pass as they gather information from the delivery guy. He shows a photo of Dong Chen on his phone and sends it to his men to find him. The protagonist praises Xiao's skills, but the old man seems a little worried about something. Yiqiu thinks that finding Dong Chen doesn't guarantee he's Tao Kon's killer, so the protagonist decides to use his tracking power again to be sure. But as he tries to use his abilities, the protagonist coughs up some red liquid and becomes weak. He then falls to the ground and his two companions rush to help him, worried. The protagonist is taken to the Dragon King's mansion for care. The protagonist then slowly wakes up, looking a bit confused about what happened. The old man approaches, happy to see him awake. The Dragon King explains that the doctor said the MC was just tired and needed to rest. Worried, the protagonist says he needs to find Dong Chen quickly because he has a bad feeling. Suddenly, the bodyguard enters the room and announces that they've found the target. The old man and the protagonist are surprised and happy with the news. They arrive at Gyud Temple, an ancient and sacred place in the mountains. The group arrives at the temple. The bodyguard orders his men to block all exits so no one can escape. The three prepare to enter, stating that Dong Chen won't get away. The bodyguard looks around. The bodyguard comments that there doesn't seem to be anyone in the temple. The Dragon King explains that the temple is famous, so Dong Chen might be hiding inside. The temple doors then slowly swing open. From inside the temple emerge Dong Chen and the delivery guy who tricked them earlier. The bodyguard recognizes the fake delivery guy, and the man smiles, saying they meet again. The security guard asks if the delivery guy is also from the snake cult. The imposter laughs and says it's a shame the bodyguard only just realized. The protagonist then understands they've been led into a trap. The villain says it's not too late, and now he can get his revenge on the Dragon King. The man blows on a bamboo leaf. The Dragon King begins to feel a sharp pain in his chest and falls to his knees. His companions support him and ask if it was Dong Chen who did that to him. The old man continues to feel immense pain. The protagonist explains that the villain is using the leaf to control the poison in the old man's body. Dong Chen says the Dragon King has lived for a long time, and now his time has come. But the protagonist acts quickly to help the old man. The hero then focuses his energy and prepares to use one of his special techniques. With his hands on the Dragon King, he releases a powerful aura to contain the poison. He announces that he has sealed the old man's meridians and tells him not to use his energy now. The Dragon King insists that Yiqiu should flee, as the enemies only want him. But the protagonist stands up furiously, determined to fight. The villain scoffs at the protagonist and asks who he thinks he is to challenge him. Without hesitation, the MC lunges forward and throws a powerful punch at his opponent. The blow hits Dong Chen squarely, sending him flying back from the force. The enemy skids on the ground but manages to stay on his feet. Dongchen recovers and stares at the protagonist with a look of disdain. He admits the protagonist has some strength, but says it's not enough to beat him. At that moment, the villain braces himself and begins to contort his body strangely. The protagonist watches closely and notices that the enemy seems to have suddenly gotten bigger. Dongchen then rushes our boy with incredible speed and strength. As the blows rain down on his defense, the protagonist wonders how he got so strong. The attacks become increasingly difficult to dodge. However, the MC suddenly falls to the ground, not understanding how he was hit since the blow didn't connect. The villain smiles and says the best is yet to come. Without giving him time, the enemy continues his barrage of punches. He is suddenly hit in the face, and ends up being thrown far away onto the ground. Dongchen approaches and says the protagonist can't beat him, but our boy refuses to give up. The villain then challenges him to another round. On top of a building, 9,000 years watches the fight between the two. Smiling, he thinks that he's looking forward to seeing the protagonist's true power. A mysterious voice reveals itself and comments on 9,000 years' dangerous interest in the protagonist. The voice complains that if it weren't for him, he would have defeated the Wushen sect before. 1,000 years remains silent. But soon, 9,000 years comments that the protagonist is nothing more than a simple doctor and shouldn't be compared to him. Annoyed, the voice asks if 9,000 years is defending or thinking of recruiting the protagonist. 9,000 years scoffs, saying the mysterious person lost a fight. The cloaked person defends himself, saying it was a close call. 9,000 years smiles and tells his companion not to lie, as he knows the defeat wasn't by a small margin. He then continues to hold his necklace. But Ye seems to be in some kind of trouble and needs help. Returning to the fight, we see the protagonist getting up from the ground with great difficulty. The villain praises his resilience, but still looks at him with a superior smile. Suddenly, the old man tells Xiao that speed is the key to victory. The protagonist listens intently to the old man's words. With a surprised look, the protagonist seems to understand what he needs to do. In that instant, he focuses his energy. The hero then moves with incredible speed. The villain scoffs and says it's no use trying because he won't be able to hit him. However, Dongchen misses his attack, and the protagonist manages to dodge with agility. The enemy is confused and wonders where the protagonist went. He's so fast. Without the opponent noticing, our boy appears behind him. With a decisive blow, the MC hits the villain's back, slamming him hard onto the ground. The enemy falls from the impact of the attack. On his knees, Dongchen glares at the protagonist with a look of anger and disbelief. The villain gets up furiously and charges toward the MC, but the protagonist dodges the punch and attacks the villain's back again. With a victorious smile, the MC says that people always need to try and never give up beforehand. Defeated, the villain says he was going to give the hero a quick end, but has changed his mind. He then takes the bamboo leaf and brings it to his lips. Immediately recognizes the bamboo leaf and tenses up. Dongchen begins to play the leaf as if it were a flute. A huge black snake appears. The protagonist comments that the members of the Wushen sect really like to raise strange animals. Wasting time, the serpent lunges rapidly toward the protagonist. Seeing this, our boy makes a hand sign, preparing a powerful technique. The snake charges with a powerful aura in front of the protagonist, but our boy doesn't back down. In an instant, the two powers collide violently, creating a massive explosion of energy. The villain falls to the ground, shocked to see his snake defeated, and its remains scattered. That moment, a clean shot hits Dongchen in the head. It was the bodyguard who eliminated him. The guard tells Xiao that he will take care of the rest. As they walk, the MC warns his ally that the Dragon King may not have much time left. Surprised, the man questions Xiao, as he had said the Dragon King had a month to live. The protagonist explains that Dongchen activated the poison. They return to the luxurious mansion, where a man informs them that a guest has been waiting for a long time. Arriving there, the Dragon King asks who the visitor is. Soon they realize it's 9,000 years. The Dragon King immediately kneels before him, greeting him with respect. With a smile, the man says he's happy to see Xiao again. The MC then questions if he can spare his family now that he's found the person he was looking for. Xiao advises the protagonist not to easily trust anyone's promises, not even his. The protagonist and the Dragon King are shocked by the unexpected statement. With a calm smile, the man tells them not to be tense, as he won't break his word. The Dragon King then reveals that the assassin was Dongchen, the master of the Wushen sect branch. 9,000 years comments that he didn't expect them to have a common enemy. The Dragon King says that's why he and his brothers will serve 9,000 years from now on. 9,000 years then announces that the Dragon King no longer needs to worry, as Xiao will take care of everything. The protagonist is completely surprised by his unexpected declaration. He asks if he's kidding him. The protagonist explains that he doesn't want to take over the underworld, but 9,000 years asks if he looks like he's joking. Trying to get out of it, the protagonist says he has patients at the hospital. However, the man stops him and shows him a golden card, explaining that it's a symbol of power. The protagonist says he's just a doctor and can't possibly take on such an important position. The man then recalls that the MC's mother is a kind and good-hearted person. Furthermore, he mentions that the MC risked his life to save the Dragon King from his enemies, and that it would be a mistake not to use someone with so much courage and sense of justice. He knows the protagonist doesn't like to fight but understands that he has a strong desire to protect. The protagonist is speechless and visibly shaken by the speech. Noticing the protagonist's hesitation, 9,000 Years says he'll add one more condition to the proposal. With a smile, he reveals that he can help the young man find his biological father. The protagonist is completely shocked to hear that. He confirms that he discovered the protagonist's father was no ordinary person. The protagonist remembers his adoptive mother's words and his heart aches. With a determined look, the protagonist shakes his new boss's hand and accepts the proposal. We return to the hospital, in the vice director's office. Inside, the vice director is still worried about his missing son. Suddenly, he hears a knock on the door and, startled, tells the person to enter. A police officer approaches the doctor and asks him to come to the station to help with a case. The officers explain that they found a body and suspect it might be the vice director's son. The man is completely frozen. They arrive at the autopsy room. We see a body covered by a sheet. With trembling hands and a broken heart, the father approaches to identify the body. Upon pulling back the sheet, the vice director screams in despair, saying it's impossible and that's not his son. The police officers hold him back, asking him to calm down, but the man insists they've made a mistake. One of the officers then asks if his son had any fights or disagreements with anyone. At that moment, he says with certainty that he knows who the culprit is. With a look full of hatred, he swears he will make the protagonist pay for what happened. We see the Lin family mansion. Inside the house on her couch, Lin is scrolling through her phone. Protagonist approaches her with a bowl. He then hands her the bowl and asks the young woman to stop using her phone and take her medicine. The woman complains that the medicine is too bitter. Suddenly, she pulls the protagonist's collar and says she wants him to feed it to her. The MC turns bright red and says she'll be fine once she takes the medicine. The young woman then smiles and comments that he doesn't listen to her anymore now that he's the big boss. He's surprised and asks how she knows about that. She just smiles mysteriously and continues the conversation, leaving the protagonist confused. The young woman says the city is dangerous and that his identity hasn't been recognized yet. This makes him worried, as he understands that his position as leader could be at risk. She then suggests that he use the Dragon King as a shield to protect himself from enemies. The protagonist thanks her for the brilliant idea and says he was worrying about the situation for nothing. She pushes him against the wall and asks how he plans to thank her for the advice. Lin kisses him and says he knows what she wants. Our boy gets all red and flustered by Lin's unexpected kiss. Suddenly, a voice interrupts the moment, saying the police are looking for him. Is annoyed at being interrupted again. Walking arm in arm, she asks the police officers the reason for their unexpected visit. One of the officers is captivated by Lin's beauty and greets her formally. The police officer then shows a warrant and says he needs the protagonist's help with a case. The officer explains that it's a murder case involving a young man named Go. Lin becomes furious and says that guy's passing nothing to do with the protagonist. The officer apologizes and explains that the victim's family pointed to the protagonist as a suspect. She continues the argument, saying the vice director's son was a problem and deserved what he got. The protagonist interrupts her by calling her name to calm the situation. With a calm look, he tells the officers he will cooperate with the investigation. We arrive at the police station. He is taken to an interrogation room. One of the officers then says he's going to ask some questions and expects him to answer truthfully. The officer questions if the protagonist knows that Go disappeared, and he coldly replies that he didn't. The investigator then asks why the victim's father accuses him of being involved in his son's disappearance. The protagonist explains that the vice director's son stole his thesis and tried to sabotage him at the hospital. With this, the officer concludes that the young man had plenty of reason to want revenge on Go. The protagonist denies it, saying he's just an ordinary person and that Go was rich and picked fights with many people. The officer says they investigated the disappearance and that the protagonist was looking for him that morning. He confirms this but explains that he left the hospital afterward with Professor Bay to go to Yun Mountain, and that he went there to treat the Dragon King's illness. So he didn't have time. He states that although he had a motive, he didn't have the opportunity to do anything against Go. With a confident look, he hopes that next time they'll have concrete evidence to arrest him. With that said, the protagonist turns and walks out of the police station with firm steps. Outside, the vice director glares at him with hatred and swears he will make him pay for his son's passing. The protagonist calmly says that his son's situation has nothing to do with him. The old man insists it was him and that he will pay for what he did to his son. The protagonist then advises the man to pray for his son so he can reincarnate in peace. He turns and leaves, leaving the furious vice director behind. Suddenly, the man stumbles and falls to the ground. Lying on the ground, the father swears he won't leave the protagonist alone and that he will pay for everything. At that moment, the cell phone in the man's pocket starts to ring. A voice on the other end informs him that he has been fired from the hospital by order of the director. The man is shocked and doesn't understand how he could be fired after so many years of service. The voice explains that he is being investigated for accepting bribes and embezzling hospital assets. Furthermore, he is accused of having an affair with a nurse, which tarnishes the hospital's reputation. The person on the call warns him that the hospital will sue him and that he should expect a summons. Desperate, the man sees a message from his wife arriving on his phone. He is even more shocked when he opens the message and sees what his wife sent him. The message shows a photo of her with another man, leaving the vice director completely devastated. In the message, the woman says she's tired of him and is going to enjoy her life from now on. Completely shocked by the news, the vice director screams in anger. At that moment, the pain in his chest intensifies, and the man clutches his heart, feeling a sharp pang. With blurry vision and in great pain, Go's father falls unconscious on the parking lot ground. We see the mansion of the famous friends in the city. Inside the mansion, a man asks a man with a top knot how young Master Xiao is doing. The young man, drinking a glass of wine, replies that his legs are useless. The duo is surprised and questions if they won't be blamed for what happened. The man with the top knot explains that the young doctor is very skilled and would be difficult to deal with. His companion then asks what they can do and also worries about the other people. He then gets an idea of how they can get rid of the protagonist once and for all. With a confident smile, he says that although it's difficult to take down the MC, he has a plan. Meanwhile, in a park near Lin's house, we see a beautiful sunset landscape. The protagonist pushes Lin's wheelchair as they talk. Comments that with Go in the loony bin, the protagonist can finally work in peace. He says she always protects him, which is why he suspected she was involved. She then retorts, saying he was always the first to defend her from everyone. She explains that she started investigating as soon as Go caused trouble for him. The protagonist apologizes for getting her involved in this, but she says she feels no pity for them at all. She recalls a time when a mother begged on her knees for Guo to save her child. The young woman says the doctor demanded money and was a piece of trash who only thought of himself. The protagonist kneels and says she shouldn't compare herself to people like him because she is wonderful. Lin then asks if the protagonist has ever accepted gifts from patients. Our boy seriously says that yes, he has accepted some gifts from his patients. Surprised by the answer, the young woman's eyes go wide in disbelief. He explains that he accepted eggs and other simple things from very grateful patients. The protagonist fondly remembers the patients who gave him gifts as a sign of gratitude. He then says goodbye, saying he needs to return to the hospital to care for his patients. While looking at him, thinks that he really is a different kind of person. She then calls out to him and asks him to promise her something very important, and asks him to never forget his purpose and to always protect the soul of a doctor. With a determined look, our boy replies that he will always be himself, no matter what happens. She then jokes, saying he promised to give her a bath later, and he gets embarrassed. She laughs and says she knew you can't fully trust a man's words, challenging him. As the protagonist pushes the wheelchair, someone is watching them. The mysterious man seems to have ill intentions. In the late afternoon, the protagonist tells the young woman they should be going. As they talk, a stranger approaches them. Suddenly, the man trips and falls to the ground. The man falls, he drops his bag near Lin. She then picks up the bag and returns it, asking if he's okay. In that instant, the man's expression changes to a malicious one. The man then pulls out a blade and tries to strike Lin. The protagonist is surprised by the man's action. Without a second thought, he kicks the attacker with all his might to protect his girl. Even after taking a kick, the man doesn't give up and tries to stab him again. And with a slash, he hits the protagonist's back. The protagonist feels the pain after being hit. The young woman screams for him to let her go because he's injured and needs help, but the protagonist lands another kick on the man. She immediately grabs her phone to call for emergency help. The attacker realizes the situation has become complicated and decides to retreat for now. With a swift move, the man flees the scene. The MC asks if Lin is okay, but she's more concerned about him. She touches his wound and realizes it's a pretty big cut. She says he needs to stop the bleeding, but the protagonist says he's fine since he's a doctor. He then uses a healing technique, and an aura surrounds him, staunching the wound. The MCC says the bleeding has stopped, but the young woman is still very worried about him. With an angry expression, she tells him to go home so she can check on him. Back at her mansion, the young woman carefully tends to the protagonist's wound. He apologizes and says he'll be more careful. Lin explains that her heart nearly stopped when she saw his back covered in blood. With a sad look, she asks why he treats her so well and risks himself for her. Embarrassed, our boy says it's a man's duty to protect a woman in danger. She then moves closer and asks if he protects all the women he knows. Nervous, the protagonist denies it and says she's special because she's Miss Lin. Surprising the protagonist, she grabs his arms and comments that he treats her in a special way. She then reveals that she doesn't want to be just someone he protects, but his woman. With that, without giving him time to respond, she kisses him again. As she kisses him, she tells him to close his eyes and enjoy it. The two continue to kiss passionately, and the mood starts to heat up. The protagonist's hand then slowly moves down. With a sigh, she gets excited in his arms, and the mood is good. They kiss with passion, and the night promises to be a long one for both of them. He then lays her on the bed and asks if she's sure about this. Lin replies that she's never been more sure of anything in her life and smiles at him. The protagonist blushes but accepts her decision, and the night follows its natural course. Later at the mansion, night falls as our boy enjoys the evening. Lying with Lin, the protagonist looks at her while she's asleep. Tenderly, he moves a strand of hair from her face and admires her beauty. Suddenly, Lin turns and kicks him by accident, making the protagonist complain that she's a restless sleeper. He carefully adjusts her on the bed and says he'll protect her while she sleeps peacefully. He then gets up and gets dressed, leaving her in bed. Our boy then goes to the window and opens the curtains. He feels a strange energy inside him and realizes something has changed after last night. Then, with a smile, he closes his eyes and decides to try cultivating this new energy. Soon, he begins to meditate. According to an ancient book, the method to open the celestial eye is to condense the aura in the forehead. He tries to do this, but the energy continues to flow uncontrollably through his veins. He realizes the energy isn't obeying his commands. At this, a large amount of energy concentrates, and a bright light blinds him for an instant. The energy then concentrates on his forehead, and the area begins to heat up. The young man feels a sharp pain in his forehead, as if it's being burned from the inside. He puts his hand to his forehead and wonders what's happening to his body. The location of the celestial eye is 2 centimeters above the point between the eyebrows. With the opening of the celestial eye, a person can see invisible things like demons and ghosts. The protagonist thinks the attempt failed. In the bathroom, he looks at himself in the mirror and feels that his body is a bit strange. He then grabs a towel to dry his face, but notices something different in his reflection. Startled, the protagonist sees that his eyes look strange. He remembers that according to an ancient book, only 4 people in history had eyes like these. The first of them was an ancient sage who helped create the writings of the Yellow Emperor. The second was a famous emperor, and the third was a conquering king. The last was a lord from the Tang dynasty. The protagonist finds it impossible that he could be like them. He says it's impossible for him to be a saint. At that moment, he hears the sound of the shower and sees the silhouette of the young woman taking a bath. Thinking of testing his new power, he closes his eyes and concentrates. Upon opening his eyes, he can see clearly through the bathroom door. Inside, the young woman is peacefully showering, unaware that she is being watched. Surprised, he realizes his power worked and covers his eyes with his hands. He comments that he can't use this ability for this kind of thing. He stares at the beautiful woman taking a shower. Suddenly, the protagonist is surprised to realize that the woman is not Lin. He gets a headache and wonders if overusing the power caused it. The book then explains that using the eye causes dizziness and one's vision depends on the user's power. He thinks that now that he's opened the celestial eye, he can finally save the Dragon King. At that moment, the young woman comes out of the bathroom, and the MC is flustered, not knowing what to say. The young woman then stares at him with a serious look and asks what he's doing there. Awkwardly, the protagonist says he was hungry and was looking for something to eat. She gets suspicious and asks why he would be looking for food in the bathroom. The woman accuses him of being up to something. Just then, the girl slips in the bathroom. Fortunately, the protagonist manages to catch her in time and prevents her from getting hurt. Holding the young woman in his arms, he comments that she is very light, blushes and is left speechless. Suddenly, she grabs the protagonist's neck and starts to strangle him. She tells him he can leave, that she has better things to do. At that moment, she slams the door, and the protagonist says she's a murderer. Very luxurious hotel. The assassin who attacked Lin and the MC complains that the mission failed and there won't be another chance. Soon, someone knocks on the door, getting his attention. He asks who it is, and a voice says it's room service with a snack. Suddenly, the door flies open, and someone strikes the man with a wine bottle. The wine bottle shatters squarely on the man's head. Even the guy stays on his feet. The woman then points a gun at him and says he's under arrest. The man comments that she's from the king of the underworld, and that she doesn't look like them. At that moment, a man in a suit appears and asks what he imagines they would look like. The man is surprised by the man who appeared behind her. The captain says that even though they are from the king of the underworld, they still protect humanity. He explains that he has committed 30 of 5 crimes and there's no way to escape. The criminal says he surrenders, and the woman begins to cuff him without hesitation. But in a swift move, the bandit dodges the handcuffs. He uses her as a shield and says there's no way he's going to prison. Without a second thought, the man shoots the captain. The bullet hits the team leader's shoulder, and he feels the pain. The bandit scoffs, saying the captain of the king of the underworld isn't such a big deal. With the hostage in his arms, the injured captain orders him to release her immediately. The criminal smiles maliciously and asks if he really wants him to let her go. He says that if he lets her go, how can he prove he's a real man? The captain is furious at the taunt and glares at him with hatred. With the gun pointed at his head, the bandit says he won't see tomorrow. He says he'll finish off the captain first, and then have his fun with the girl. At that moment, the protagonist appears at the door and yells for him to stop right now. The criminal recognizes our boy at the door. The bandit then mocks the protagonist, saying he didn't expect to see him so soon. The hero thinks that thanks to the tracker, he was able to find the guy easily. With the gun pointed at the protagonist, the criminal asks if he's here to meet his end. Without hesitation, the bandit shoots in the protagonist's direction. But in a surprising move, our boy dodges the bullet. The criminal can't believe the MC managed to dodge a point-blank shot. Scared, the bandit yells for him not to come any closer while pointing his gun at the girl and demanding to know who he is. The protagonist says it doesn't matter who he is, he just wants to know who sent him. The man says he won't say anything, that he has his honor as an assassin. The hero says we'll see if his mouth is as tough as his bones. With a powerful punch, the protagonist lunges forward and hits the criminal with all his might. The impact is so strong that the bandit flies backward. Lying on the ground, the man is knocked unconscious. The protagonist then approaches the young woman and asks if she's okay. She says she's fine, and the captain thanks the protagonist. The protagonist then touches the captain's wound and uses his powers to heal him. He says he stopped the bleeding and now, he just needs to go to the hospital to have the bullet removed. The protagonist then asks if they are from the police or something. The woman and the captain look serious, and she comments that they are not police officers. The captain thanks him and asks for the protagonist's name, who introduces himself as Xiao. Impressed, the man asks what the MC's job is, since he's so good at fighting. The protagonist's cell phone starts to ring, and he sees that it's an important call. He answers, and on the other end of the line, someone says the Dragon King is not doing well at all. He is shocked by the news. The protagonist then runs out of the place, leaving his new friends behind. The protagonist arrives running at the Dragon King's mansion. Arriving there, he throws the door open and asks what happened. The guard replies that the Dragon King has already fallen into a coma. With a serious expression, the MC tells him to take him to where the old man is. As they are about to go, one of the men asks them to wait a moment. This gentleman asks if the newcomer is the Xiao who was taking care of the Dragon King. Some people doubt the protagonist, saying he looks too young to be a good doctor. The guard explains that the Dragon King's condition stabilized thanks to the MC, but the old man doesn't believe in the protagonist's skills. Our boy then asks if he could cure the old man. Annoyed, the older doctor asks what would happen if the master didn't survive the treatment. The protagonist proposes a bet. If he cures the Dragon King, the old man will have to bow to him. The old man comments that if he cures the king, he will become his disciple. The protagonist then says he wouldn't dare accept such a weak master. They go to the old man's room. Inside the room, we can see the Dragon King lying down. The protagonist approaches him and checks his pulse. The guard asks Xiao if he can still save the Dragon King. The protagonist says yes, but he will need one thing to perform the treatment. With a serious look, the protagonist says he needs a golden needle to begin. The guard finds the request strange and says that silver needles are usually used. Suddenly, the older doctor says he has the golden needles the MC needs. Master Sun then brings the box and says the item is a family heirloom. He hands the needle to our boy and says that if anything happens, he will pay with his life. The protagonist is surprised to see that Master Sun's relic is from the ancient palace. He begins to tell the story that over 100 years ago, his ancestor was a traveling doctor. One day, the ancestor found the empress sick and happened to cure her. She appointed him as a high-ranking imperial doctor. Even with the offer, he refused, and the empress gave him the set of needles. Master Sun says he has never used them because they are special and can cause harm. The old man says that perhaps it's fate and lends the needles to the protagonist. The protagonist accepts the needles, bowing to the old man. He then opens the box, revealing the gleam of the ancestral golden needles. Our hero explains that the poison has already reached his heart. He gives the Dragon King's body a serious look. He summons his energy to use his acupuncture needles. Focuses, holding the golden needles. He quickly applies the needles to the body. The other doctors are shocked by how fast he's applying the needles. The older doctor is stunned by our protagonist's audacity, placing needles in such dangerous points on the body. With a focused gaze, our protagonist holds the final needle. He then inserts the last needle directly into the heart. With a swift movement, he makes the needle vibrate. The doctors are floored when they see our hero using his internal energy to guide the needles for the cure. This is a technique used by cultivators that few doctors in the world can master. The older doctor wonders where so much pure energy is coming from, as the protagonist seems to have a ton of it. He realizes that maybe the Dragon King can be saved after all. while our hero says it's not over yet. Our hero then explains that the poison has spread throughout the body and that he needs a basin of fire to continue. Our protagonist announces that he's going to force the poison out. The basin of fire arrives. He then prepares to expel the poison from the Dragon King's body. Then he closes his eyes and concentrates his energy. And with an intense glow, he activates his celestial vision. The young man uses his special sight to look for the parasite that's causing all the trouble. He knows the parasite feeds on blood, so he starts searching in the blood vessels. Using his vision, he examines the heart and the brain, but finds no sign of the poison hidden in these organs. He realizes his celestial vision only lasts for 30 seconds and that time is running out. Without wasting a moment, he forces his celestial vision to activate once more. Dobai, and our hero is exhausted from using his special ability so much. He's already used his celestial vision 5 times and is frustrated that he can't find the parasite. The assistant doctors start to doubt our hero. Sun grows anxious about the situation. He then approaches and asks the protagonist if there's anything he can do to help, but our hero says no. Our protagonist is at his limit. He's used his celestial vision too many times and can't keep going like this. But suddenly, he has an idea. Since the parasite feeds on blood, he can use that to lure it out. With this in mind, he uses his energy to speed up the Dragon King's blood flow. Our guy then activates his celestial vision one last time. And as he looks at the lungs, he finally finds the parasite. He then explains that the creature is cunning and hid behind the lung to avoid being found. He quickly grabs one of his acupuncture needles. And with a precise movement, he manages to extract the parasite. The little critter reveals itself to be a tiny serpent. Our hero quickly tosses the small creature into the basin of fire. The parasite begins to writhe in the flames. The others are shocked by the creature's size and wonder what it is. The guard comments that it's a yin-yang worm, which starts small but grows by drinking blood. But he's shocked by the creature's size. After so many years of feeding on the Dragon King's blood, it had fully developed. One of the doctors asks how they never found the parasite during their exams. The protagonist says that these worms are created by specialists and require blood to be trained. On top of that, they're great at hiding and aren't easily detected by medical equipment. The doctors are both impressed and terrified by the existence of something so awful. And at that moment, the Dragon King begins to cough. After waking up, he's confused and wonders if he's still alive and why there are so many people in his room. Dr. Sun, relieved, says he was lucky because our hero managed to save him. The guard approaches overjoyed and says the parasite has been removed and he's cured. The Dragon King, still in disbelief, touches his own chest, wondering if he's really okay. Our protagonist confirms that the poison has been removed and now he just needs to recover. The old man thanks our young hero, who replies that he should also thank Dr. Sun for the needles. Then we see a remote place in the mountains, an ancient village. In this place, an old man spits out a large amount of blood. He collapses to the ground, weakened. With a furious look, he says our hero's name and swears he'll find out who dared to mess with him. At that moment, a young man arrives to inform him that the sect master wants to speak with Elder Mu. The old man then asks if the boy knows the reason for the meeting, and he says that 6 other elders have also been called. This makes the elder thoughtful, since summoning everyone at once means something big has happened. He then gets up and grabs the boy by the collar, demanding to know what happened, only for the young man to reveal that Dongshin is gone. This leaves Elder Mu in shock. He can't believe his grandson has passed. With a furious gaze, the old man asks who is responsible for this. The messenger, terrified, replies that it seems to be someone from Jiangzhou. At that moment, the Dragon King is lost in his thoughts. Elder Mo then swears revenge and screams that the Dragon King will pay in blood. Meanwhile, a celebration is happening at the Chu mansion. The table is laden with. The Dragon King then raises his glass and thanks everyone for taking care of him. Everyone toasts and wishes the Dragon King a long life. The guard then warns the king that he shouldn't drink too much so as not to hinder his recovery. Our hero then says he can only have 1 glass today. With that, the old man raises his glass to toast to health in his honor. Soon after, the Dragon King asks his guard to get something. He places a check for 30 million on the table as a bonus. The guard then informs them that the money will be split with Dr. Sun. Everyone thanks the Dragon King for his generosity and also our protagonist for his help. Dr. Sun says he doesn't deserve the money. Dr. Sun suggests splitting half of it with our hero. The Dragon King interrupts, saying he has other plans for our guy. He then turns and calls our hero over to continue drinking. Dr. Sun bows down. This surprises our protagonist and the Dragon King. The protagonist helps Dr. Sun up. Dr. Sun says he remembers their bet and asks our hero to accept him as a disciple. Our guy tries to calm him down, saying it was just a joke. But Dr. Sun insists and asks again to be accepted as his disciple. Our protagonist is surprised to see that the doctor is giving him his set of golden needles. The doctor says the needles are his treasure, but in our hero's hands, they would have a better use. Our guy, left with no choice, ends up agreeing and accepting the doctor as his disciple. The Dragon King calls our hero by his name, Xiao. He asks if he knows why he convinced him to accept Dr. Sun. Our protagonist listens intently to the explanation. The Dragon King says that Dr. Sun has influence in the Jiangzhou Medical Association. With this alliance, our hero will be able to build his own power base in the region. Our guy says he'd prefer the Dragon King to remain in charge. The old man gets angry and says he's too old to continue leading. Then the Dragon King asks his guard to hand him something. The guard hands over a document with a stock transfer agreement. Our hero is surprised to see it's for Huanol Plaza, the largest commercial complex in Jiangzhou. The Dragon King explains that a lot of people have taken notice of the protagonist, and this is to show power. He also says that the evil god cult won't give up, and Ye Chu needs to grow strong quickly. Our protagonist comments on the recent attacks and suspects the cult. The Dragon King says the assassin has no connection to the cult and was just a mercenary. He then reveals that the one who hired him was likely Hong Yuling, leaving Ye Chu shocked. At the Feng family mansion, the top knot guy sneezes out of nowhere, feeling like someone is talking trash about him. He wonders who dares to speak ill of him. Another guy approaches and offers a massage but is called disgusting. Suddenly, Hong Yuling's cell phone starts to ring. He answers and is shocked to learn that Lin Jingji didn't kick the bucket and his 10 million went to waste. The top knot guy hurls his phone and curses up a storm for losing so much money. Meanwhile, Zhou Hao tries to calm him down, but Hong says it wasn't his money. Zhou Hao is surprised to overhear on the call that the Dragon King has been defeated. At that moment, Hong Yuling celebrates because Jiangzhou is finally going to change. He then says that the 4 families of Jiangxing will no longer have to obey that old man. At this, Zhou Hao asks how they should greet the Dragon King's new successor. Hong replies that since the successor is in the hospital, he's going to take some people to visit him. Soon after, the group heads to the Jiangzhou hospital for said visit. Inside the hospital, our protagonist is reviewing some documents. Meanwhile, Hong and his goons are inside the room until our guy opens the door. The protagonist is surprised to see the whole group there, and Ye Q wonders what they're doing there. But one of the guys introduces Dr. Sun as the most incredible doctor in Jiangzhou. Suddenly, he notices our hero's presence there and gets really ticked off. The patient, on the other hand, is happy to see Ye Qiu and says he hasn't seen him in days. Our guy then explains that he's the doctor responsible for the treatment, making the other guy even more furious. Hong yells that he won't let an intern take care of the successor and demands to speak with the director. Then the guy turns to Dr. Sun and praises him, saying that not just anyone can hire him. Dr. Sun bows and asks his teacher for forgiveness. Hong Yuling and his goons are gobsmacked to discover that Ye Qiu is the old man's teacher. Our protagonist tells Dr. Sun not to bow, but the old man insists on showing respect. Hong asks what's going on, and the doctor threatens him to never treat his patients again. The doctor then tells the successor that his treatment was well done, and he no longer needs his help. Embarrassed by the situation, the group decides to leave to avoid more trouble. But our hero stops them before they can leave the room. Ye Qiu then comments on the attack Lin Jingji suffered, and about the delivery guy. Hong Yuling denies knowing any assassin. Our protagonist then says that he never mentioned the delivery guy was an assassin. The top knot guy realizes he's been tricked and yells at Ye Qiu for setting him up. Without a second thought, our hero lands a solid punch right in the top knot guy's face. Hong falls to the floor, unable to believe the protagonist had the nerve to hit him. Ye Qiu then asks if the guy thinks he's tougher than the Jade Emperor. Ye Qiu threatens him, saying that if he ever speaks ill of Lin Jingji again, he'll regret it. Scared, the goons drag Hong Yuling out of the room to avoid getting beaten up further. The young man on the stretcher praises Ye Qiu's work and says he can already get out of bed. Our hero advises the patient not to overdo it, as his injury is still serious. Meanwhile, Dr. Sun is thinking about how incredible the protagonist is. Our hero gets an unexpected call asking him to go to a bar. He gets worried and wonders if Sister Bai is drunk again. Meanwhile, at a bar, a guy is trying to hit on Sister Bai, but she ignores him and says she's not waiting for him. When our protagonist arrives, he sees 2 guys harassing Sister Bai and gets annoyed. The woman stands up and, stumbling drunkenly, happily goes over to Ye Qiu. The guy who was hitting on her gets furious because she was waiting for someone else. The guy then bad-mouths the woman and leaves the bar. Sister Bai clings to our hero, saying she's waited a long time for him. He then offers to take her home, but she refuses. She insists on drinking more and says she doesn't want to talk about work. The woman asks when he's going to stop being a doctor and start being her man. She then slowly approaches to give Ye Qiu a kiss. Our hero is frozen on the spot, but before anything can happen, the woman passes out drunk in his arms. With no other choice, our hero takes her to her apartment. He gently places her on the bed and covers her with a blanket. She stirs awake and asks for water while calling his name. Our protagonist goes to the kitchen and gets a glass of water. Meanwhile, he wonders what's gotten into her, since he's never seen her drink so much. Before he can make it back to the room, she hugs him from behind. She then says she only needs him for one night, and Ye Qiu reminds her that she's drunk. The woman starts to cry and apologizes, saying it's all her fault. She blames herself for taking him to the Crystal Palace, where everything went south. Our guy realizes she's been blaming herself this whole time for what happened. She continues to cry, saying it would have been better if she had been the one to marry him. Bei then pleads with him not to leave her alone, because she's terrified. He lays her down on the sofa again and promises that he'll protect her. Just then, our protagonist's cell phone starts to ring. He wonders who could be calling. Is fast asleep. Our guy takes out his phone to see who's calling. On the line, the man says he finally picked up and starts talking about having seen her parents. Our protagonist answers the call and calmly says that Bai is sleeping. On the other end of the line, the man gets furious and asks who this is and why he has her phone. A smirk, Chu asks if the guy has forgotten him so quickly. The guy on the other end of the line is shocked and screams our hero's name. Then the protagonist replies, saying that at least his hearing is still good. The man freaks out on the phone, yelling that Chu dared to get involved with Bei. Our hero reminds him that he was the loser and that he should stay away from the woman. Before the man can continue yelling, our protagonist hangs up on him. He then opens the apartment door to leave and promises himself that he will protect Bei. Meanwhile, the woman continues to sleep peacefully. At the hospital, we see the light of a surgery room. In the room, turn off. Inside the operating room, our hero takes off his gloves as a nurse congratulates him on the success. After that, he heads to the coffee machine to finally get some rest. As he sips his coffee, the door opens and someone calls his name. At the door is a detective our protagonist recognizes, and he greets him. The detective sits down and says he needs the doctor's help with a very serious matter. He then reveals that it's about the massacre of 12 people, which shocks our hero. The officer explains that Chu is skilled in martial arts and medicine, so he might be able to help with something. Our guy agrees to help, and without wasting any time, they call him to the morgue. Arriving at the morgue, they are faced with the body freezer. A police officer approaches one of the bodies. He explains that of the 12 people, the oldest was 80 years old, and the youngest was only 10. The detective reveals that none of the bodies have any external or internal injuries. Our protagonist says it wasn't a dark technique, as he didn't sense any evil aura. He then hypothesizes that the victims were poisoned by something strange. Our guy then asks the detective to take the body outside the morgue. Q explains that some things can only be seen under sunlight. 30 minutes later, the bodies are exposed to the sunlight. Our protagonist explains that the livor mortis should be red, but on these bodies, it's black. The female officer smells something strange and asks what that is. With that, the others also notice the odor, and the detective points to the bodies, telling the protagonist to look. In the sunlight, strange dark spots begin to spread across the skin of the deceased. Chu gets closer to analyze one of the bodies and opens the corpse's mouth. At that moment, the closed eyes of the deceased begin to tremble slightly. The body's eyes snap open. The detective and the female officer are shocked and wonder what just happened. Q stands up and tells them not to touch the body, as it could be dangerous. The officers quickly back away to avoid any risk. Then our hero reveals his discovery, saying they were victims of Ashura's poison. The pair is confused and asks what kind of poison that is. Ashura's poison affects the nervous system, causing the victims to have hallucinations and seizures. Our guy adds that the poison is subtle, so by the time it's discovered, it's already too late. Our hero says he needs to go to the crime scene to investigate, and the detective agrees to take him. With that, they arrive at the building where the family lived. Our protagonist enters the apartment and feels a heavy, cold energy in the air. Chu asks if the air conditioning was left on to preserve the crime scene. The officer replies that it wasn't, and that the place was already like this when they arrived, and it's even colder inside. Inside the apartment, the temperature is close to freezing, which is highly unusual. Our guy believes the poison was in something the family ate, so he heads to the kitchen. He then turns on the tap and tests the water to see if the poison came from there, but finds nothing. Seeing that he won't find anything this way, he decides to use his celestial eye to investigate. The protagonist then activates his ability. With his new eyes, he can see the flow of energy. He uses his special vision to search for the source of the poison throughout the kitchen. Our protagonist then searches the living room, but finds nothing there either. His celestial vision isn't working as it should, as he can't find anything strange. He laments this, but the officer calls him, saying he found something downstairs. With the officer's information, our protagonist looks at the building and realizes there's something underneath. Immediately, the protagonist asks them to bring an excavator and dig up the site. No sooner said than done, an excavator arrives and starts digging into the concrete ground in front of the building. As the machine works, a police officer approaches and asks if there's really something down there. Suddenly, the excavator hits something hard, and upon removing the earth, everyone is shocked to see a huge Buddha head buried there. The female officer is startled and speechless at the discovery. Looking closer, they see an inscription on the base of the statue. Realizes that the building was constructed less than 100 years ago, right on top of the Buddha's head. The officer asks what that has to do with the poison, and our hero says he's going to find out. As he approaches the statue, our protagonist finds a strange talisman stuck to it. The group gets scared and calls out to Xiao, but he removes the talisman from the statue. At that moment, the statue begins to tremble, and a huge crack opens down its middle. Our guy says he's going inside to take a look. The female officer says she's going with him. Xiao stops her, saying the place is dangerous and asks them to stay outside. The detective offers to go with him, but our guy tells them to wait there. Inside the cave, our protagonist finds a small altar. Our hero knows this is a place of extreme yin energy, and staying here too long would be fatal. Walking through the cave, he steps on a flower. He recognizes it immediately as the Azura flower, the source of the poison. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the cave, and a mysterious old man appears out of nowhere. The old man asks who he is, and our protagonist is surprised. A dark aura emanates from the old man, and our hero smells the same scent as he did from the victims. Our guy then asks who the mysterious old man is. The old man says his name is Pu, and that he is a ghost servant. Our hero asks why he's there, and the old man replies that he's been there for 25 years. Xiao is shocked, as it's impossible for someone to survive that long in a place like this. The protagonist introduces himself as a doctor and offers to help the old man. But Pu refuses, saying he's poisoned by Azura and that there's no cure for him. Pu reveals that the 11 people who perished lived above the Buddha's head. He then confesses that he had warned them about the dangers of building anything on that spot. The old man recalls that the builders ignored his warnings about messing with the Buddha. With a guilty look, Pu laments, saying the blame for what happened is his. The old man asks for our guy's name and age, saying he looks like someone he knows. Our hero replies that he's 26 years old and that his mother's name was Jinglan. Upon hearing the mother's name, the old man stands up in shock and asks if she is from the Chuyan family. With tears in his eyes, Pu starts laughing while crying hysterically, saying the heavens have eyes. Suddenly, the old man spits up a large amount of red liquid, surprising our protagonist. Rushes to help, but Pu stops him from getting any closer. Even injured, the old man cries as he says he has finally found the one he was looking for. He then instructs our hero to retrieve something hidden under the stone bed. Pu also warns him never to go to the capital and not to get involved with Yi Wushuang. Desperate, our protagonist tries to help the old man, who is clearly at the end of his life. Before passing, Pu says it was a pleasure to meet Xiao. Pu is gone, tears streaming down his face, leaving our protagonist stunned. Confused, our guy wonders who that old man was and why he knew him. Then he remembers the instructions and finds a wooden box under the bed. Xiao questions what the old man could have given him, since they had never met before. Upon opening the box, our protagonist finds what appears to be a map. He becomes pensive as the old man knew his mother and warned him about someone named Yi Wushuang. Returned to the hospital. Our hero, in his lab coat, visits a patient who seems to be unconscious. His cell phone rings, and the name Bei appears on the screen. Upon answering the call, our guy's expression changes drastically. Without a second thought, he dashes out of the room. A serious traffic accident has occurred involving a school bus with more than 20 children. Arriving in the ambulance, our protagonist prepares for the rescue. The accident scene is chaotic, with the school bus overturned. As soon as he arrives, our hero begins to organize the rescue teams to help the victims. Looking at the overturned bus, our hero realizes the situation there is the most critical. Without hesitation, our protagonist enters the vehicle to assess the damage and help the children. He finds the driver gravely injured, having used his last strength to hit the brakes. In his last breath, the man begs our guy to save the children. Inside the bus, the scene is heartbreaking, with several injured and frightened children. Some of them are trapped and crying in pain, while others are in a panic. Our protagonist approaches one of the screaming children. He figures that the ones who are crying are likely just scared and not seriously injured. He notices another child. As he gets closer, our hero is shocked to see a child impaled by an iron bar. The first responders discuss the severity of the situation with the overturned school bus. Inside the vehicle, our hero assesses the boy's injury and says that any movement could be fatal. At that moment, Bai arrives with her rescue team. She asks Xiao about the child's condition. Our protagonist explains that the iron bar is very close to the heart and the boy might not survive. That Bai asks what he plans to do, and our guy says he's going to remove the bar. She is shocked, but Xiao asks her to trust him. Bai agrees to help and asks for an ECG monitor to be brought immediately. The machine displays the child's heart rate while the nurse warns of the danger. Remains focused for the delicate procedure. He knows that if the rebar hasn't damaged the heart, the child has a chance. With a golden needle in hand, our hero prepares himself. He explains that he will use the needles to seal the child's acupuncture points and create an external circulation. Bai is perplexed and says she's never heard of acupuncture being used for that. Ignoring her surprise, Xiao asks for silence so he can concentrate. With a determined look, our hero announces that he's about to begin. Positioning himself over the boy, he grabs the iron bar. With steady hands, our protagonist prepares to pull the object out. He grits his teeth and uses all his strength to remove the bar. With a precise pull, Qiao manages to extract the iron. Immediately, Bai shouts that the boy's heart rate has dropped to 90. Our hero then uses a mystical technique, applying energy talismans to the child's body. The papers float around the boy, emitting energy. With this, the wound on the boy's chest begins to glow intensely. Relieved, Bai informs him that the heart rate and blood oxygen levels have risen, and he can now be taken to the hospital. Bai hugs him with admiration and praises him for saving that child's life. Satisfied, our protagonist lets out a sigh. Then he collapses into Bai's arms, who becomes desperate. After some time, our protagonist is being forced to wake up. He then wakes up with a start. Lin teases him with a feather and says he's finally awake. Our guy asks what happened and why he's here. She then throws the feather at him and says he recklessly risked his life. Xiao defends himself, saying he just ran out of energy and will be fine after a while. At this, Lin gets closer and says he doesn't need to exercise, because she can help him. She then playfully jumps on top of him. At that moment, Bai enters the room and is furious. Lin says she has terrible timing and asks if Bai wanted to join them. The situation becomes very awkward, with the two women staring each other down and our hero caught in the middle. To break the ice, Qiao asks if there's anything to eat. Lin gets annoyed and tells him not to change the subject, while Bai crosses her arms angrily. Our protagonist then asks Bai what happened. Is the room and asks with a smile if he wants some beef congee. At this, Qiao says he'll take anything she brings. Bai then asks if he knows who the child he saved was. She reveals that the boy is the vice mayor's son and that he came to visit while he was unconscious. Asks if the child is okay. With a smile, she confirms that he is out of danger. Bai also mentions that the rescue was broadcast live, so he will receive the Doctor of the Year award. And to top it off, she says he has been promoted to Chief of Chinese Surgery. Qiao overjoyed and gets closer to Bai, asking if it's true. She confirms it and says that now he can lead his own surgical team. Our protagonist hugs her gratefully, thanking her. Embarrassed, Bai says it was nothing. He then says he's going to call his mother and Lin to celebrate. Hearing this, Bai runs out of the room, looking jealous. She turns and says that at the hospital, she will take care of him and help him whenever he needs it. At the hospital, we see the heart monitor indicating that the pressure and heart rate are normal. The protagonist then announces that the surgery was a success. He appears relieved by the procedure's outcome. He closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. He places the surgical instruments on a tray. His colleagues thank him for his efforts during the long operation. After a long day at work, our hero finally goes home. On the way, his cell phone starts to ring. He answers the call. It's one of his old classmates. The classmate invites him to a class reunion on Friday night, and our guy confirms he'll be there. Arriving home, his mother greets him with a smile and tells him to wash his hands for dinner. The table is filled with delicious dishes she prepared especially for him. His mother asks if he's been working too hard at the hospital, as he looks thinner. Our protagonist jokes that he lost weight because he hasn't had her cooking in a long time. She laughs and tells him to eat slowly, as the food isn't going to run away. Then our hero asks his mother if she knows someone named Xiao. Upon hearing the name, the woman is startled and almost drops her bowl of food. She stammers that she doesn't know anyone by that name. Notices her reaction but decides not to press the matter. However, his mother questions him, asking who this person is and if he met him. Our protagonist, with a sad expression, reveals that this person is no longer alive. With the news, the bowl slips from her hand and shatters on the floor. The woman is shocked and begins to cry silently. Qiao tries to comfort her but realizes the situation is more complicated than he imagined. She then reveals that Xiao was his uncle, and that he sacrificed himself to save her. In a memory, we see the uncle protecting the mother and a baby Qiao. Our guy hugs his mother to comfort her, saying that his uncle didn't suffer much. He tells her that Xiao asked her not to go to Jingxing and not to mention someone named Yi Wushuang, then asks who this person is. With a serious and sad expression, she reveals that Yi Wushuang is his father. Our protagonist asks his mother to tell him more about his father. With a sigh, she says she didn't want him to carry this burden, but now she has to tell him. The mother reveals that his father was from the most powerful family in Jingxing City. A prophecy said that Yechu's birth would bring chaos to the world. Our guy asks if anyone really believed in something like that. She explains that the prophecy came from the most famous and powerful fortune teller in Jingxing. She reveals that when the fortune teller predicted disaster, all the families in Jingxing united against them. In a flashback, we see Yechu's father protecting his wife and newborn son. His father defended him from all the great families of the city. He said that to get to his son, they would have to go through him first. Our hero says that no matter what kind of person his father is, he will find him to get some answers. But his mother stops him, saying that his uncle's sacrifice would be in vain if he revealed his identity. She panics and begs him not to go after his father. Xiao comforts her, saying he won't, and asks her not to get so agitated. His mother warns him that Jingqing is a much more dangerous place than he imagines. She reveals that his father's two brothers were also involved. The first is Yi Wuxia, the richest man in the country, who took over the family business. The second is Yi Wudi, a master of martial arts and bodyguard to the country's leader. Lastly, she mentions Ye Zheng, the head of the family and one of the most influential people in Huagu. She doesn't want our guy to seek revenge, but rather to find his father so they can be reunited. She says he has become an excellent doctor and that his father would be proud. He agrees with his mother and says he will do it for his father and for their future. Then our protagonist hugs her tightly, comforting her. However, in his thoughts, he promises that one day he will go to Jingqing. On the day of the Jiangzhou Medical Awards ceremony, we see a large and luxurious building. Inside the venue, several guests are chatting and socializing. On stage, a host calls the vice mayor to present the awards to the top 10 doctors. Our hero receives his award and congratulations from his professional colleagues. Holding his trophy, he gives a speech about never forgetting his roots as a doctor. The audience applauds warmly. As he steps down from the stage, our protagonist is called over by Bei. She congratulates him proudly, saying she knew she wasn't mistaken about him. Qiu thanks her with a gentle smile. An older man calls our guy over for a commemorative photo. He then poses for the photo alongside them. Some women watch and start to gossip about Yi Qiu's background. Outraged, Bai turns to them and yells that they don't know anything and that he is the most dedicated doctor. The two women are surprised and embarrassed by Bai's unexpected reaction. Then our protagonist approaches and tells her she doesn't need to get worked up over people like that. Bai asks if he wasn't angry about what they said, and he replies that he wasn't. Our guy says that because he's young and has received this honor, it's normal for people to have doubts. She retorts that he earned all of this through his own effort and dedication. Yi Qiu smiles and says he needs to keep healing people and doesn't need to explain himself to anyone. Bai comments that she's noticed he seems a little different now. Our protagonist jokes, asking if she's captivated by how much more handsome he's become. She gets flustered and says he's getting more and more shameless. The day of the class reunion arrives and our protagonist heads to the agreed-upon location. In the middle of the crowd, he spots his old classmates. Upon seeing his friend, he acknowledges him. The young man is surprised to see our hero. Seeing our guy's car, the friend asks if being a doctor in Jiangzhou pays that well. Ye Qiu replies that the car is borrowed. He then invites his friend to get in the car. The two arrive at the reunion venue. The friend comments that a lot has happened since our hero broke up with his ex-girlfriend. With a calm expression, Ye Qiu just says he gets the message. Then the two walk into the reunion hall together. In the hall, several old classmates are chatting excitedly. Our protagonist's friend greets everyone. But a man in a suit glares at them with a not-so-friendly expression. Unbothered by the stare, Ye Qiu just suggests they find a seat. Our guy's friend then asks if he can sit next to him at the table. At the main table, we see a sign indicating it's for official doctors. At another table, a sign shows it's for doctors on probation. And at a more distant table, we see a sign for medical interns. Our protagonist wonders why they've divided people by class at a class reunion. A very beautiful woman calls Ye Qiu and his friend to sit with her. This woman is Suji, the most popular girl from the university's surgery department. Our hero's friend gets all giddy because the college beauty spoke to him. Our protagonist teases his friend, telling him to stop being a dork. Seated at the table, Suji asks if Ye Qiu is still interning at the Jiangzhou hospital. Our hero then turns the question back on her, saying he remembered she went to the central hospital. She says she was there at first but couldn't handle the routine and quit. Our guy's friend compliments her, saying a beautiful woman like her shouldn't have to wear herself out. With a serious look, Suji comments that the entertainment industry isn't easy either. Ye Qiu says the professions are just different, but the important thing is not owing anything to anyone. At that moment, someone places a hand on our protagonist's shoulder. In a suit asks if our hero still remembers him. Qiu remembers that in college, the class representative hated him for being poor. The man then raises his glass and says he's glad everyone still remembers him. Everyone at the party toasts and thanks the class representative. Our protagonist's friend whispers, wondering why the guy is paying everyone's bill. The class representative overhears the comment and turns around with a sour look on his face. The young man gets embarrassed and tries to explain that he wasn't talking bad about him. The other men ask who invited those two to the party. Suddenly, the hall door opens and someone enters, calling for the class representative. It's Ye Qiu's ex-girlfriend, now looking much more sophisticated. People start to gossip, wondering why our hero's ex is with the representative. Our protagonist then whispers to his friend that he finally understands why the guy is putting on such a show.